Uh, Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live stream. It's Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel because that's probably going to be the only thing that you like from what I'm about to tell you guys. For those of you guys who are living under a rock, Odegaard is injured, and he got injured yesterday in international duty for Norway, and now we have to talk about it because going into the North London Derby, we were speaking. Beckham, stop it. Going into the North London Derby, I mean, we spoke about it before that with Declan already out, that like I was already feeling like, okay, this is not great. Now this is like a full on emergency, and I already know there's going to be people that are like, oh, none of this matters. Everything is fine. You guys panic all the time, blase, blase. But it's always those same people that at the end of this, the season have excuses about why we didn't win the league. And, it's all fine. Everything is always fine with them. And we know it's not. So respectfully, they can really just sit this one out because when you get into match week 4 and you're already in a situation where you don't even have your first choice midfield, you're going to have people that are panicking. You're going to get people that are going to question how we've gotten out of that transfer window and we don't feel any stronger. We don't feel like we've done enough. And so no matter how much you try to temper down the negativity around things, there's not much to go around it. It's not like another Tomiyasu injury. It's not like, I don't know, Jorginho got injured. This is our captain. And the extent of the injury is not known. But, we have to hope that there's no ligament damage because if there is ligament damage, he will be out a lot longer. But I would say, like, with confidence that he's not going to be able to play in the North London Derby. He's walking on crutches right now. They showed a picture of him getting onto a plane back to London on crutches. And so it's just one of those things where at the beginning of every season, we're like, if as long as we can keep blank, blank, and blank, and blank fit, we're fine. Odegaard is kind of one of those players. And so I think, one, the injuries are kind of unfortunate. Like, it's not like anybody wants to be injured or anything like that. But you have to always look at, how we've set up the team. And you can ask questions on whether or not we prepared for a moment like this. I will say this, that I fully expect us still to win the North London Derby. And if we don't, we fucked it. You can't expect to win the league, and which is the remit. Remember, we're going into year 5, third time challenging. The expectation is to challenge and win the league. You have to go to Tottenham and win, so whether you have Odegaard or not, Rice or not, you should have a team ready to win that game. And so I expect the club did they didn't do that much in the window, but they have to have felt that this squad was good enough to get them over the line. So the expectation is to win the game, period. Nothing has changed. You still have to go away to Atalanta and win. You still have to go to the Etihad and get something. Nothing has changed, so they will have felt like they put together a squad that's good enough to do so. And so they should have planned for these things to happen. If they thought that they were going to get through 3 seasons without our key players getting injured, well, that's on them. If they actually thought that we would get through multiple windows or multiple seasons without injuries to key players. Now, we have been relatively lucky when it comes to injuries. I know that this is like a unpopular opinion, but Arsenal fans, we tend to be quite, disingenuous. When you look at the difference between us and Newcastle, the difference between us and Chelsea, the difference between us and United and other teams, they've had these types of injuries all like for the last couple of seasons, multiple times. We haven't. We've had Saliba once. That's the one major injury that we've had in 3 seasons, or going on 3 seasons, right? Because this is going to be the 3rd season that we challenge. And we've seen what happens when that happens. We were unable to live with that injury. And so, but since then, Saka's only been injured like for 1 or so game. Odegaard's only been injured for like 2 games or so. Saliba hasn't been injured again. Like we've been relatively lucky with injuries. So, this is going to be a challenge. But again, the club went into the window and decided that what they came out with was good enough to win the league. And so the expectation is to still go to Spurs and win no matter what. It's just not I don't feel sorry for anybody. I don't think we should feel sorry for ourselves. Nothing is happening to us. Most teams have these types of injuries, but we have went through multiple windows and decided that we're not going to have a Saka backup. We're not going to have an Odegaard backup. And even, so it's like, I don't know what to tell you. You have to go out there and beat Spurs, and you have to figure out something. Die Hard says, as long as Partey plays 6, we will be fine. No need to panic. Arteta will move Havertz to left 8, and I would like to see Waneri at right 8. Mata says, Waneri baptism by fire would be kind of tight. Listen, even before when Declan Rice got the suspension, I said that I felt like Waneri should step in. I felt like the midfield should. Obviously, this is before Odegaard got injured, but I said Odegaard, Waneri, and Partey is what I'd go with. I don't think that Havertz in midfield is something that we should be running again. Like, it doesn't work. And I could be wrong, but I feel like every game that Havertz has played in midfield without Odegaard, we've lost. So running that without an actual midfielder, that's the whole problem with playing Havertz in midfield, is he's not a midfielder. When he plays in that position, he's a second striker. He's not involved in build-up. And so if you don't have a connector, you don't have somebody that can connect those dots, your midfield is going to be nothing. And so just saying, well, moving Havertz makes sense into midfield, it doesn't, because the only time that it even remotely looks usable or passable is when Odegaard is in midfield. So I always preferred Waneri just to step into that position. And now that we have another absence, you've removed ESR, you've removed Fabio Vieira. For me, from the outside looking in, you're telling me that you trust him. And so moving all these other pieces around or doing some bullshit, just putting Havertz in midfield and playing Jorginho and Partey, to me, it just screams like taking the easy way out. I'd rather see Arsenal go with a more brave midfield. And I know, it's the North London Derby. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. Well, what does being scared and playing the scared lineup ever do for us? It doesn't work. The scared midfield where you drop Havertz into left center mid so that he can do the duels, that shit don't work. That don't work. Even when Odegaard is there, when we play with Havertz in left center mid, it's janky, so why not go with something that, because if you press Havertz, Jorginho, or Partey in that game, you're taking the ball right off of their toe and you're going down our throats. So I just feel like that midfield that's the midfield that Arteta is going to go with. He is. Like, Arteta is going to go with his safe midfield. He's going to go with safe Jorginho, Partey, and Havertz. But it's just, hello. Like, we're going to get pressed off of the ball. There's no connectivity. There's nobody that's going to receive the ball under pressure. I don't understand how Jorginho and Partey are going to work in that double pivot. For me, it's just like I'd rather go with something a little bit different. At least with Waneri, you have a midfielder in midfield that knows how to do midfieldy things, but he still has other options that he can utilize. But we know Arteta, he's going to go with something safe. And everybody's going to, like, people are going to pretend like these other options are just so out there. But would it really be that out there to play Saka in left center mid? Would it be that out there? You have Sterling now. Sterling can actually play on the right. Why can't you? I'd much rather see Saka in the midfield, Waneri in the midfield, actual midfielders in midfield, rather than just like throwing Havertz in midfield. Because that also means that you have to start Jesus up front. And for me, I'm not really trying to see him snatch chances against Spurs. I'm just not. He's just not somebody reliable in front of goal. There's going to be a lot of pressure on this match. And he's just not somebody that I trust in front of goal right now. So I don't know what to tell you. Jonathan says Arteta will default to the safe option and play Jorginho, Partey, and Havertz. I just think that that's the wrong thing to do, personally. I think it's the wrong thing to do. I think you have to go with something where the opposition is actually going to have to defend you. Like, that midfield is not going to create any chances. That midfield is not going to control the game. That is the type of midfield that you play when you are basically going to sit in your own box and try to defend for your life. That's pretty much because this midfield is just going to push it back. Theo says, since when is Saka a midfielder? Saka's not a natural midfielder, but neither is Havertz. So for all of you guys that are like, well, Saka's not a midfielder, well, neither is Havertz, and you guys are begging for him to play in there. Saka is a better midfielder than Havertz. Hello, like don't be dumb. Like, I get it. It's like you guys are trying to figure out a way where dropping Havertz into midfield makes sense, but I would put money that if we play Saka in midfield instead of Havertz, we'd get a better outcome. Saka can play anywhere on the pitch, and we all know this. We've literally known Saka can play anywhere on the pitch. He can play fullback, he can play left wing, right wing, midfield. We know this. So, like, be serious for 5 seconds. And BX is saying Havertz is literally an attacking midfielder. Okay. Keep going with that. You guys, come on now. Be fucking for real for 5 seconds. Havertz is not good in midfield for us. It's passable. It's doable. It kind of works a little bit. But I prefer to at least go with Waneri because he's an actual midfielder, or Saka, because at least you get somebody that can receive the ball under pressure, somebody that the opposition actually has to mark. Havertz is like a non-factor in midfield when he plays in there, but I get it. You have to toe the company line. If I feel like we're going to go with Havertz, then I'm going to pretend that that's the right thing to do. Well, good luck with that, because you guys are going to be ripping your fucking hair out on Sunday when Havertz is not receiving the ball, when we can't connect a pass, when we can't pass through the lines, when we can't control the midfield, when we're stuck in our box trying to play on the counter and guys are just hoofing it down the pitch. Havertz is not the answer in midfield for us. He's not the answer, and it should not be the retroactive answer because Odegaard is not there. We saw it against Newcastle last season when Odegaard couldn't play. That was one of our worst attacking performances last season. We had one shot on goal, and we couldn't create a chance to save our fucking lives. Jorginho, Rice, Havertz was the midfield on that day. Without Odegaard, that midfield, that Havertz thing does not work. So I'd rather at least, like, as much as people are saying, but Saka's not a midfielder, at the very least, you could at least see Saka receiving the ball under pressure, and he's not going to just disappear in the midfield. He's not. So I feel like people are being really disingenuous with Saka playing midfield. Not only have we seen him play there for us more successfully than we've ever seen Havertz play midfield for us, but he's just a better footballer. You know, he's a better footballer, and I trust him in midfield more than I would Havertz because we've seen that doesn't work. So Keenan says Saka isn't really an interior player who's most effective out wide. I would try Timber or Zinchenko at left 8. They're both profiled to play there. Timber, I don't like the idea of a Timber playing in midfield. I just think it's a galaxy brain thing that people are making up. and Zinchenko, if you don't want to win any duels and you want to get ran over in midfield, run a Zinchenko, Partey, and Jorginho midfield. Like, I don't get it, but whatever. Either way, the fact that we've been having these conversations is just more based on, like, you guys can get mad at me for suggesting Saka. This is not my fault. Like, hello. Barry says Saka can easily play midfield and it would be good to see him as an interior. I think people are just being so dumb about it, to be honest. Like, Saka can obviously play midfield for one game because that's all you'd need him for is one game because Rice will be back the next game. So, but for one game, would I rather play with somebody that can actually receive the ball under pressure, can actually pick a pass, can actually carry the ball? Yeah, than a second striker who we've seen on multiple occasions play in midfield, and it's like there's no one there. So no matter who you really have in there, Odegaard makes it kind of okay, but there's just no going to be no Odegaard. And I think Havertz, against West Ham played in midfield. Havertz against Newcastle played in midfield. Both of those times were without Odegaard, and it was a train wreck. So whatever. O'Malley says, how are people doubting Saka's versatility? Has never not played well at any position. We've seen him play left center mid before for Arsenal multiple times. So I don't know why people are pretending like they've never seen it. But the Havertz, Jorginho, Partey midfield is the copium. And so people are going to pretend like that makes sense or that will be a successful midfield. And I guarantee by about the 20th minute, they'll be pulling their hair out because that midfield is not controlling any game. They're not controlling the game at all. They're sitting back in their box and defending for their lives. There's just no way. So Amina says Zinni does play midfield for his national team. He does. The issue with Zinchenko at this level playing against Spurs is he's going to get pressed off of the ball and he has no defensive awareness whatsoever. There's a reason why Pep and Arteta have neglected playing him there. I personally feel like it's because he can't be trusted off the ball and he can get pressed off of the ball very easily. He's not getting away from anybody. And so I just, and using international games as a barometer for club football for me is just a accident waiting to happen. As international football is nothing like club football. Especially in the Premier League. So there's a reason why they've never used him there. And against Spurs, a Jorginho, Partey, and Zinchenko midfield, count me out. Count me out. They're not winning any duels. They're, when I tell you, locked in their box trying to get out. Those guys are getting ran right through. There's just no, sorry. I can't do it. We don't need to rearrange the entire team. Jesus starts up top, Havertz in midfield, and Partey at the base. Martinelli or Trossard out wide, Saka on the right, defense unchanged. It's not even about rearranging the entire team. I'm actually trying to figure out a way to not move Havertz from center forward because I don't know if you guys missed this whole part of the season last season, but the majority of times where we played with Jesus up front and Havertz in midfield, we lost the game. I don't know if you guys were in a coma or you guys slept through the games or what, but the majority of games in which we played with Jesus and Havertz in those positions, Havertz in left center mid and Jesus up front, we lost them games. So there's a reason for that. And I just prefer not to move our best center forward out of his position to accommodate a player that is not going, like he's not going to, I just don't trust him in front of goal in an important game. I just don't, so I'd rather keep our front line as close to normal as possible because dropping Havertz into midfield it doesn't help anything. It doesn't do anything for us. It's a failed project. Like we've done it and it doesn't work. So you might as well keep your front line the same. Not fuck with that. Even if you don't go with the Saka thing, play Nwaneri, the guy that you by moving on ESR and Fabio Vieira, you're telling me that you trust him. So just play Nwaneri in there. Like, I don't know why we're so allergic to playing Nwaneri. I don't get it. It's like, oh, well, you're going to throw him in a game. And then what if it goes bad? What if it goes good? You guys are always talking about, I'm Leanne Gunner. I'm the negative one. What if it goes well? What if, I don't know, a talented youngster actually contributed to the season in a time where we actually needed him to? What if that happened? So I'd rather keep our front line with our best center forward in that position, so I don't have to watch Gabriel Jesus snatch at shots. Sorry, so by you are actually rearranging the team by moving Havertz into center midfield. You're actually doing that. So yeah. Nelson says, Waneri, Partey, any midfielder, Timber, it's not that complicated. If anyone can't play well, then we know they are not good enough. I would say that, like, the fact that we're always reverting back to the safe midfield and not finding other solutions that are more sustainable, I think is our biggest issue, because we're always going to be in a position where Odegaard, injury or a Saka injury is always going to be the end of the world if we don't find actual sustainable solutions to them not being available. And for me, Havertz in midfield is it's not a sustainable option. So I'd prefer us actually do something different. And I get it. It's against Spurs. We have to go with something that we know works, but we know Havertz doesn't work in midfield. So that's why I'm just saying, like, those arguments don't make sense because we know Havertz doesn't work in midfield. So you got to go with something a little bit different. Is Zinchenko in midfield the option? Probably not. I would not do Zinchenko in midfield. I'd actually prefer Timber, and I think that that's dumb too. So figure out something. But Waneri would definitely be in there. I don't really get it. So yeah, GSM says Havertz as right 8 and Trossard as a 9 will work. Havertz at right 8. No. And we've never done Havertz at right 8 and scored 5 goals. We've never, because Odegaard was on the pitch. Anytime that Havertz played in Odegaard's position, we lost. So that's just not true because Odegaard was actually on the pitch. So this is not a thing. This is not a thing because Odegaard was on the pitch. And to act as though that's not a key element to why we probably scored them 5 goals is disingenuous. Like, we didn't play Havertz right 8 and Trossard at 9 and it just worked. We didn't. Like, the midfield was completely different. I'm totally against it. But I know that's what we're going to do. So, Super Chat, Arteta values Havertz for his work rate, which I'm not keen on, but I understand the benefits. We could balance the team differently. We want to keep possession, but lack the needed energy. I mean, in games like this, I just feel like just going for, because if you play with Partey and Jorginho in midfield, you are going to sit in a low to mid block. Like, you're not going to sit up high. You're going to sit in that block, So I just think then those front 4 positions are like gold to you. They have to be the types of players that are going to take it upon themselves to make things happen, because them front 4 positions are all you got. You're only going to attack with them front 4. You're not going to attack with any of your fullbacks. You're not going to attack with any other midfielders. You're going to attack with them front 4. And for me, getting your most talented, your best on the ball, that is so important. It's gold dust, And so I get Havertz in midfield is a thing that we've done and the duels and all that kind of stuff. But I just think about the times where, like, he just cannot figure out where to pass the ball. He's kind of like, not, if he gets on the ball at all, he's just passing it kind of in the safe positions. I'm not sure that that's necessarily what we're going to want to see after sitting in a mid to low block for the majority of the game. So I'm just trying to figure out how we can get more bang for our buck, because we're going to be sitting in a mid to low block. But the options are scarce and they're bare anyway. People are talking about Zinchenko's and Timbers in midfield, and I think the bigger conversation is more, why are we here? We shouldn't be match week 4 and being in this position, but this is where we're at, So, yeah, for me, like, I get why we use Havertz. Like, nobody has to explain to me why we use Havertz in midfield. Arteta uses Havertz in midfield because he can win the off the ball shit. It's not about anything he does on the ball. It's about a player that can win, because Arteta doesn't want to lose duels. But sometimes you have to think about on the ball stuff too, because we're toothless when we play with Havertz in midfield at times. And I think that's mostly because you just don't have another technical midfielder in there to make things happen. So yeah, it's a tough one. I want to avoid Havertz in midfield and Jesus up top against Spurs. So, you know, I would go with anybody else in midfield, basically. You know, that's just me. So let's see. Envy says, wait, Jesus is available, right? He will be. So he'll play up top. Winning Way says, hopefully we sign 2 or 3 players in January. We're not signing anybody in January. I don't know why people get this idea that we're always going to buy in January. We rarely buy in January. So, and the fact that we're in match week 4 and people are talking about the January window, we shouldn't even be thinking about the January window. We need to deal with what we have. And like, we're always thinking about transfer window. And that's why, people are yelling at me about not thinking that the window wasn't enough. I knew we would get here so fast that people will be talking about January and we don't have enough. Of course we didn't have enough. If that window closed and you thought we had enough, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we were always an injury away from catastrophe, and even without the injuries, we still were nowhere near Manchester City. So I don't know what to tell you, but I would love to see Arteta do something a little bit less obvious. Don't go with the safe midfield, because I just don't think that that's going to work. I really just don't think that's going to work. I think we have to go with something a little bit more creative here. And I don't think it would kill us to go with an actual more footballers in midfield. That I'm really not trying to hate on Havertz. I'm really not. I love him up front. I think I want to see him at center forward because I trust him more to get the job done than Jesus. But in midfield, I'm just thinking that that's just not the right thing to do. Gunna says, I blame the Cronkies again for lack of passion. Edu and Arteta, they need to go, to be honest. Kai never scoring 20-plus goals to win us a title. Now we have 4 key men out. I don't even know if, pinpointing Kai out in this is like a little bit like, come on. If anybody has showed up this season besides Raya, it's been Kai and Saka. They're the only 2 players that I feel like have played anywhere near their level besides Raya. So pinpointing Kai is like a little bit suspicious here. It's a little suspicious. Keenan says, left center mid is Zinchenko's natural position. I think you just don't like him as a person and are mad we didn't sell him. Listen, you can't have it one way or the other. One day I'm a Zinchenko apologist and the next minute I hate him because we didn't sell him. I'm one of the few people in this fan base that actually recognize the quality that he has, but I'm also not going to lie about his deficiencies. And so, yeah, I felt like we should have sold him in the summer. But I also was somebody that if he stayed, then he stayed, so you can't have it both ways. You can't call me a Zinchenko apologist when I say that he has tons of quality on the ball in possession and he's not always the reason why we lose games. And then and a couple of days later say that I hate him. So nobody hates Zinchenko, but Pep and Arteta are the ones that are telling you that he's not good in midfield. They're the ones telling you that, not me. They don't play him there. If that's his natural position, why don't they play him there? Answer that. Why don't they play him there? If he plays there for his national team and that's his natural position, why don't he never play there for club? So maybe Arteta hates him and is mad that he didn't sell him because he doesn't want to play him in left center mid. If that's your logic, that's terrible. It's just awful logic. Like, be serious for 5 seconds. Nobody hates Zinchenko. Nobody hates Zinchenko. Io says, I think we can cope. Arteta needs to adapt. He doesn't adapt though. He goes with his safe and then, we lose 1-0 or something like that. And then he's talking about referees or some shit like that. Like, we can't just continue to do the same thing and expect different results. Kai in midfield is just not going to be it. He does need to adapt, but he doesn't. We know he's going to play Partey and Jorginho and Kai Havertz. And that midfield is rank. Like it's rank as fuck. Like there's no creativity. There's no ability to control matches. Like it's going to be fucking wild. At least we know that Rice will be back he'll be able to play against Atalanta and City. That'll solve the majority of our problem. But I still feel like Arteta, he's so lucky right now because Jesus is back and he was already doing the fire in his belly bullshit. So he's going to go back to that, and Havertz is going to play in midfield. And it's going to be horrendous. Like, come on. Die Hard Gunner says, sounds like you are picking your favorites. I don't know what you mean I don't know what you mean picking favorites. My favorite is Odegaard, and I can't pick him. Who are my favorites? Name your favorites. Trossard is one of my favorites. I'm not asking for him to play in midfield, am I? I would not want to play Trossard in midfield. You guys, Odegaard's my favorite. Trossard's my favorite. Who are my favorites? Like, what are you saying? Like, a couple of days ago, people were telling me that I hated Saka. But now I want Saka to play in midfield, and now I'm choosing my favorites? If you guys have been on this channel long enough to know, you know who I love to death. And I can't choose that player because that player's ankle got rolled the fuck over. So, no, I'm not choosing my favorites. I just don't want Kai in midfield. And I don't want to see Jesus at center forward. I don't trust him in a big game. People tell me he's a big game player. He's not. So I want to keep our best center forward in that center forward position. I want to go with something a little bit more creative in midfield, something a little bit more dynamic, and not going with something that we know is not going to work. It's not about favorites. Hello. Amina says that midfield on Sunday against Sarr, Bentis, Matters, and Basuma, it's going to be peak for us. Listen, they have runners. And they will know that we don't have the legs. Even with Rice and Odegaard and Partey as our starting midfield for the first 3 games, we looked like a team that could not run. We were getting ran over by Morgan Rogers and these guys. We were getting ran over by, Lamina and those guys. So they will know to put Basuma and Sarr and these guys in. So buckle your seatbelts. If you thought it was bad with Odegaard and Declan Rice and Partey, the one thing I will give Kai in midfield is that he works hard. So at the very least, I can see him trying to, work back and stuff like that. But that's just not where Arsenal should be. We should not be choosing players based on because he's going to get a tackle in. But if you guys thought we were getting ran over in midfield before, you got another thing coming. But again, people think that midfield is just fine. It's going to work and it's great. So listen, I don't know what to tell you. Doctor says this girl was twerking her bum last weekend for the transfer window, chatting how reinforced our squad is. 8 out of 10 windows left and right. Wow, the waterworks now right because you chat nonsense for traction. Guys, was I twerking my bum for the transfer window? Did I ever give it an 8 out of 10? Anybody that was here knows that not only have I been called Leanne Gunner for the last couple of months because I thought the window was an absolute it was like a tragedy, but this was never me. You can never find a tweet or a piece of video or anything where I said that window was an 8 out of 10. I always said that we didn't do enough. I've been very critical of the window. So Dr. Seymour Butts, Arsenal FC, proctologist, or whatever the fuck your name is, you're chatting shit. Like, and I'm not even playing with y'all anymore. Like, I'm really not. I'll tell you straight up, out of like right here, right now, that you guys, some of you guys are dumb. Like straight up. Like, not all of y'all. Some of you guys are my favorite people that I know on the internet. But some of you guys are just not very smart people. And I don't know what to tell you. Kieran says you never say anything positive. I do say positive things. I just say also not positive things, and you guys get mad about it. You can't win with this fan base. I say positive things all the time, but when there's not anything to be positive about, you don't expect me to shove flowers up your ass, so I don't know what to tell you. I do say positive things. You guys just don't like when you guys want to hear positivity all the time. That's your problem. So if you don't say positive things all the time, people say that you're negative because you guys don't have critical thinking skills. And you guys, as Arsenal fans, you're so fucking deluded all the time. You think that everything is linear. It's our year. We're just going to win it because that just makes sense. But now we're in match week 4 and now everybody's panicking. So sorry, but I don't know what to tell you. Amina says toxic positive fans are annoying. We want to win a league. It's okay to critique. I'm never going to say what people want me to say. Like, I'm so sorry, but like, I've never built a platform based on there's some people that are only positive and only negative. They always spin things into a positive or they only spin things into a negative. I'm probably more pessimistic than most, but when something is going well, I say it's going well. When I think we've done something great, like when we signed Declan Rice, I was like, wow, that was a great signing. When we signed Timber, that's a great signing. When we signed Kai Havertz, yeah, I said that was a dumbass signing. I did. I felt like it was a dumbass signing. I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, to be honest, like, I just feel like this fan base wants to be an echo chamber. And now that there's cracks, they're going to get more and more aggressive on my platform and other platforms when you're not saying positive things. But just like how they blamed AFTV for Arsenal not being good, their anger is always misdirected towards the wrong thing when they should ask questions of their club. Because if I'm just a negative fan and I'm Leanne Gunner and you want Leanne Gunner and Lee Gunner and all these people out of the club, the only way that they will not have a point is if we start winning. So complaining on my platform doesn't change shit. It doesn't change anything. And if you don't like my content, respectfully, you can also just go. Like, I don't ask you guys to come here. I don't. But you guys come to bitch at me because you want to redirect your frustrations towards me, when in reality, you're shitting bricks because the club didn't do what they were supposed to. And that's just the truth. Like, so again, I don't know. Seymour Butts, Kieran, whatever the fuck your name is, I don't know what to tell you. We need to beat Spurs, and there's no reason why, there's no real way to go around it. We have to beat Spurs. So, and also something else that beyond the midfield conversation, because Arteta's going to play Jorginho, Partey, and Havertz whether we like it or not. Some of you guys think that midfield is great, so that's fine. But it's going to be one of those types of games where probably our defenders are going to have to save us, and also probably our attack. And I do think we have to go with our most positive, most dangerous front three that we can possibly go with. And if you don't move Saka into midfield, which I didn't think was going to happen, but it's something that I wouldn't mind seeing, because you guys will never gaslight me into thinking that Saka can't play in midfield, because we all know he can. I would go with Saka, Havertz, and Sterling. You need to go with, you can't have anybody else out there that's not going to be ready to just carry the team over the line. And I think you kind of have to drop Martinelli too. I think Trossard is just fine coming off of the bench. Now that you have Sterling, you don't really need to play Trossard. You should start Sterling. He's fresh. He's ready to go. He's not, I don't think he's tainted, or anything like that. So it would just be nice to go with something fresh. And I've been saying this since the beginning of the season, that we needed to freshen up the team. and not just on the bench in our starting 11. I think our starting 11 has several positions that can be upgraded, especially on the left-hand side. And I've been looking at left wing for a long time, and Sterling can play there and probably should start. Arteta won't do it because he's only ruthless when it comes to goalkeeper. Couldn't wait to get Ramsdale out of the team, but God forbid you start Sterling over Martinelli. But I would start Sterling, Saka, and Havertz. I think on paper, that is our best front three, and that's what we should go with. Well, it'll probably be Jesus and Martinelli, but I really wouldn't want to go with two players that you don't even know. You don't know what their mindset is going to be going into this game, both of which have been kind of like non-factors for a year for us, if we're honest. So I would actually love to go with Sterling and Havertz, and just hope that they can kind of paper over the cracks of a midfield that probably will be less than stellar, which is what any good team would do. Any good team would carry a couple of holes in their team over the line. I feel like that's what's required for us. It's not like City didn't go to Stamford Bridge without Rodri. They did, and they won. So that is the requirement for us to win the league. Go away from home to a good side and beat them, and so you got to go with, I think, players that are ready to win no matter what. And I think Sterling would be the best option because I'm just not sure where Martinelli's head is at. And Jesus, he's just not somebody that in big games that you can trust in front of goal. So, yeah. Johnny D says Jesus is great. We just didn't play him in the game. He was fit against Wolves. Do you trust him in front of goal against Spurs? I think to me, that's the question that you have to ask yourself is not, is he sharp? Is he a good player? Those are not, do you trust him in front of, if we only get one or two chances in that game, do you trust Jesus to put one of those away? I would say no, so I'd rather start Kai Havertz, who also has problems, but I think is more likely to score a goal, in a big game, so I'd rather him. And then you have Jesus and Trossard who can come off of the bench, Martinelli who can come off of the bench too. And you start with Sterling. You got to get players out there that have personality and aren't going to shit the bed. Jonathan says Jesus has personality for these games. We need him. I mean, guys, truly, are we talking ourselves into it or no? Are we talking ourselves into it? I think Jesus should come off of the bench. Osmond says, did we forget Jesus missed last November against Spurs? Listen, to me, it's not even about that game. Obviously, that game because I think most of our games last season when we didn't do what we were supposed to came down to that. Like, we had a lot of chances in the first half, and then we give up soft goals in the second. We did that multiple times last season. And so I don't think it's like, oh, just remember that game. But Jesus, for me in general, is just not a player that in big matches I trust. Is not even just that game in November. And Havertz has been playing well with Saka up front so far. To tear that apart feels like going backwards just to put him in midfield. And Jesus, it's just it doesn't make sense. So Jesus off of the bench after being injured makes the most sense to me. But I know Arteta is going to play Jesus because he has to go with this narrative that he's fresh and ready to go and fire in his belly bullshit. But I wouldn't do it. O'Malley says Jesus has a career conversion rate of less than 10%. For comparison, Kai was 17%. Last year, Haaland 22%. Stop being biased about Jesus. Yeah, I mean, even at Jesus's best at Arsenal, which was like the first 3 months that he was here, I do think that the majority of what we spoke about from him was his creation and dribbling and fire and all that kind of stuff. It really was never about scoring goals. And, you have to imagine that with a weakened midfield, we'll struggle to create chances. And if we only get a couple, we have to have our better people out there. And so that would be Havertz for me. And Havertz from midfield doesn't score as many goals. He just doesn't. So I think you have to leave Jesus on the bench for this. Let's see. Jonathan says, so Kai can miss a million chances and we don't criticize. We do criticize Kai Havertz, but at Arsenal, Kai Havertz has been a better goal scorer than Jesus. So like we're really just picking from two non-clinical options. But if you can sit here and say with chest that you feel like Jesus has more of a chance of scoring goals than Kai Havertz does from center forward at Arsenal, then, you're watching a completely different game than the rest of us, I feel. Havertz is more likely to score a goal. Jesus has, even in his best period, he went through a month goal drought before we even got to the World Cup. I remember that time very clearly. 3 good months. One of the months, he did not score a goal. He went through a nasty, nasty goal drought after we played against Spurs at home. So Havertz, since he's been a center forward for Arsenal, has not went through a goal drought, anything close to what Jesus had in his first 4 months at Arsenal. So it's whataboutism doesn't work here. Jesus is not a good goal scorer for Arsenal or anyone. So coming off of, injury and stuff like that, I think that Havertz is a better option. So to me, we obviously should have bought another attacker. We know that, but the window is closed. The window is closed. I gave the window a 6.5, something like that. And I think where we are now shows the fragility of that window, that attacking wise, hopefully Sterling gives us a little something, but that wasn't really what we needed or what we should have been getting. Midfield could have probably done with 2 midfielders. Me and Diluted have been calling for this for over a year, that the midfield needs restructuring. The way that we continuously restructure goalkeeper, how about you focus on midfield for once? Our midfield options are nowhere near the level that it should be. And it's such a shame now that Odegaard is probably injured for maybe, let's just call it at least 1 game. We don't know the extent of the injury. But now you have Moreno out, and now we're looking around like, okay, let's pull our best center forward from his position to play in midfield. When you're in a position where you're pulling your players from their better positions to put them somewhere else, you fucked up, because you also have a 17-year-old, but we know Arteta's not going to play him, So, yeah, I think Havertz is a better option, Yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Io says, I don't think the issue is depth. It's more about the quality of the players. Look at Madrid. If we had top players, we wouldn't be worrying about depth. I said this during the window too. We have a quality issue. There's a quality gap between us and other teams, especially when you get beyond our defense. Our defense is probably the only comparable depth that we have to City. Midfield and attack, there's questions, So I agree that the quality is a problem. And I've been an advocate for shrinking the team down. I don't think we need so many bodies. I think we need more quality. And we tried, in the window in some respect to get that, but I don't think we tried hard enough. But I do agree with you. I don't think it's about the amount of players. It's always the quality is always the most. Talent is more important than anything. It's more important than anything. Talent wins you shit. Like it just does. If you have the more talented team and you have a good coach, you're more likely to win things, like period. And I think we don't necessarily always get more talented. We get more different. We have players of a similar level of quality. We don't really jump up in quality enough when we recruit, unless it's in defense, So yeah, I think we have players that can play in those positions. They're just not maybe good enough. And I'm just now reading your super chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let's see. John Donut says facts. Kai specifically at Arsenal has been way better than Jesus. I don't know how you can even refute that. I think people that want Jesus to play crave the aesthetics of Jesus playing at his best, and they crave 2022, 2023 vibes, but that was genuinely only for 3 months. Genuinely, when he was actually playing well and also scoring goals was for 3 months. Like it's not anything to cling on to. At least Havertz has a whole half of a season playing well for Arsenal, not getting injured and not going through a goal drought. But, Havertz is somebody that I just don't like in midfield. To me, he's just a completely different player at center forward. And I think that's where he should stay. But yeah, Pixel says the issue is that we usually buy a lot of potential rather than ready-made. I mean, do we buy a lot of potential? Like, I don't know if that's even true. Most of the players that we bought recently have been pretty much ready to go. First teamers, not really it depends on what you mean by potential. I think Havertz was already done. To me, he wasn't potential. He was more of get him in a different environment and see if he can perform better. But he wasn't somebody we relatively, from Chelsea to Arsenal, we haven't necessarily gotten a completely different player. We've put a player in a different environment and he's done well. Declan, not really potential. Odegaard, not really potential. Was already a good player. Calafiori, is he potential? Not really. I mean, he played really well in the Euros. He was already playing first team football. I actually don't think we buy a lot of potential. I think we buy players that are pretty much ready to go. So yeah, Jorginho ready to go, Trossard ready to go. When's the last? I feel like the only players that we really bought that were more potential were Fabio Vieira, Sambi, and those for fact were potential, and not one of them worked out. So, but we pretty much do buy ready to go players. I think we buy pretty much ready to go players. We buy a lot of Premier League proven players. So I actually disagree with that. And potential to be world-class, not world-class. Okay, so potential to be world-class is different. So I get you. But I guess I would ask, I don't think there's any problem with buying players that are on the edges of being world-class or that you can see becoming world-class in the future. Because I don't think Arsenal are at a point where it depends on what your definition of world-class is, by the way. But I don't know if Arsenal are in a position where they're just going to walk up to Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern and take their players. I just don't know, if we're in that position. And I don't necessarily feel like all the players that they have are necessarily world-class either. Sané is not a world-class player to me at this stage in his career, right? And that's probably a player that we can go get, but we're not going to walk up there and get Musiala. We're not walking up to Barcelona and taking Pedri off their hands, So I don't think there's anything wrong with buying those players on the edges. I think our bigger problem is not buying players in certain positions, or not addressing obvious holes in the team. I think if you had on the cusp of being world-class striker, on the cusp of being world-class winger, on the cusp of being world-class, maybe another creative midfielder, those are all fine because at least you're filling the gaps in the squad that need filling. I think the gaps in the squad are a bigger issue than our players not being world-class when we buy them. Because we're not about to walk up to those teams and take their players. We're not in that position. And I don't know if there's that many players in the Premier League that are considered world-class that are below us, unless you guys think Pedro Neto is a world-class player, but it all depends on what your definition of world-class is. I just don't think we're walking up to those teams. I think we leave major gaps in the team, and that's a bigger problem than buying a pre-world-class Odegaard or a pre-world-class Declan Rice. You know what I mean? Even an Isak, if we were ever in the market to buy, here's another really good example. Sesko. Sesko is a player that is potential and has the potential to be world-class, a world-class number 9. A lot of Arsenal fans did not want him. A lot of Arsenal fans did not want him. And it'll by the end of the season, it'll be really interesting to see where he is. Did really good on international duty. That's neither here nor there. International duty is kind of like it's an add-on to good club play, you know. But it'll be interesting to see, at the end of the season, how people feel about Sesko, because a lot of people didn't want him. But listen, he has the potential to be world class, and if we put him in a position to score a goal, if I had to choose between him or Jesus to put that ball in the back of the net, I kind of feel like maybe he would score, but that's just me. Boy said, I wanted Sesko. TB says Sesko rather stay at his old club than come to us. It says a lot. I think he wanted to continue his development, which I don't think you could begrudge a young player for wanting that. I don't think he wants to be at Leipzig more than he wants to be at Arsenal. I think Arsenal do have this. They don't guarantee anybody minutes because they know that they're going to play the same 11 players almost every single game. So you can't convince a Sesko to come to Arsenal if he's not going to get any game time. You're not going to be able to convince Bakayoko to come if you're not going to be able to give him any game time. So to me, I don't think Sesko, a 20-year-old, by the way, this is not like Eze turning you down to stay at Crystal Palace. He's 26 years old. It's a 20-year-old that can stay at RB Leipzig and get valuable experience and still have just as many people interested in him next summer, because the striker market is not going to change that much in 12 months. But he's somebody that, we potentially could have had in the team, in his pre-world class, but would have probably filled a gap. Would he have helped us out? Let's see. Some people feel like he would, some people feel like he wouldn't. So Pixel says Elise is potential. He is potential. But he wasn't in a position that he is in a position that we needed to fill, but I still feel like people are disingenuous about Saka too. Like Saka's going to play every single game, So Elise was never really like a viable option, but I hear what you're saying about just we should just buy players that are world class. I would say Arsenal need to start filling gaps and stop buying left backs and goalkeepers. Des says dodged a bullet with Sesko. I don't think we did. Boy says Xabi Simons solved all of these positions in one. And TV says it's the old mentality, always backs up, never competition. And, Rafinha wanted to start. We wouldn't guarantee him that. But I feel like it's odd to me that every other club can have multiple players in the same position, but we tend to really struggle to get somebody that wants to come in and play on the wings for us. I think that's more about Arsenal having a set 11 more than the players not wanting to compete for a spot. I think when they're having these conversations with these players, Saka is going to start. Saka and Martinelli are going to start most games. So, you're not really going to be, I don't think Arsenal want a competitive environment. I think Arsenal want an environment where they have a set 11 and backups. I think that's what they want. And it's going to be hard to convince talented players, young players to come to your team for that. Like, nothing over the last 3 years has told me that Arteta wants a competitive team. He wants a standard starting 11 and guys that will be happy to be on the bench and come in. Like there's no way he wants a competitive 11. And I think that's why we can't convince players to come. So yeah. But yeah, Blaze says, Jess, is Isak and Gyökeres are world-class strikers? A lot of people think Osimhen is already world-class. Depends on what your definition of world-class is. I mean, my definition of world-class is best in your position for multiple years. Best in your position for at least 2 or 3 seasons, you're world-class, because I have like other things above world-class. World-class to me is not as high as it is for other people. World-class, elite, GOAT, legend, or world-class, elite, legend, GOAT. So because world-class to me is not as high. Like elite is like you are the top in your position and nobody's talking to you. Like, no one is talking to you. You are the undisputed best in your position. Nobody's talking to you. Nobody is having conversations with you at all. And then you have legends, player, and that's you're best in your position and you're also winning things. And then you have GOAT. And we know only 2 players have probably reached that standard where best in your position, the longevity and the trophies all match up to that, So world class to me is just not really. That's why when I say that Saka's world class, people are like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you said that," and they're like choking on their spit. It's like Saka is best in it, like he's top 3 in his position for multiple years, and that is my definition of world class. So of course he's world class. Now, is Osimhen top 3 in his position for multiple years? You have Kane, you have Lewandowski, and you have Haaland. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I'm trying to think. Because Kane and Haaland have been top 2 for at least 2 or 3 years. So does he naturally get that 3rd position? No, I don't think so. So I don't think Osimhen is world class. I don't think Isak or Gyökeres are world class either. But are they players that can make you better? Yeah, like of course. Isak is great. Do I think we're ever gonna get him? Probably not. But Isak is great. Gyökeres is great. Something's wrong with Osimhen though. The fact that nobody came and got him, something smells with that, and we'll find out later what that was. But there's something not right about the Osimhen thing. But do I think he's a good player? Yeah, I do. I think he's a good player. Caesar says, if we win, it's because Arteta coached to win. Will the negative fans give Arteta credit? They moan when the vibes are low, but celebrate. We get through it. We can't buy our way through every problem. Well, let's dissect this a little bit. If we win, it's because Arteta coached to win. Yeah. When we win, I always give Arteta the credit. Every time. When we win, he most likely, unless it was a scandalous win, where we scammed it, doesn't happen very often, usually give him a 10 out of 10. Will the negative fans give Arteta credit? I don't know. If you consider me a negative fan, then yes, because when we win games, I give Arteta credit. There's never a time where I just say, we just won and Arteta doesn't get any credit. They moan when the vibes are low. That's what fans do. Fans moan. Now they do it online. They used to do it in the privacy of their homes and in pubs and bars before. Fans always moan when their club are in a bad moment. So the idea that they should stop it because you have to see it, it's not going to happen. But celebrate when we get through it. Yeah, exactly. That is a fan. They bitch when we're not playing well or things are not going well, and they celebrate when we win. That is quite literally what a fan does. And there's a difference between criticizing the club and supporting the team. Support does not always come without critique. In fact, some people will argue that if you actually really do support someone or something, you will be honest about it. You will critique it. So I think the problem that we have in this fan base is that people feel like support means do not criticize or only criticize in a way that I deem fit, But quite literally, fans moan when the vibes are low and celebrate when we win. That is a fan. That's not a crime. That's not. What fan base doesn't bitch when their club is not doing well or they're going through a bad moment? Please find one. Even American sports, any type of sport that you find, if your team is not doing well or they're going through a bad moment, the fans are going to moan. And we can't buy our way through every problem. And I don't think that buying is always the way out of a problem. I do think that we needed to buy this summer and we missed key components to the window that the club also said that they needed. They said they needed X factor and they didn't get it. And also right after we lost to Aston Villa, the PR came out that we were going to get a striker and a winger, and it turned out that if it wasn't Sterling, we probably wouldn't even got the winger. We probably would have just gotten Moreno and Calafiori. So no, you can't buy your way through everything. But I think also because Arsenal fans question Arteta's ability to adapt under stressful circumstances when he does not have players like Odegaard or Saliba or Saka, they just rather have a like-for-like player already there, because Arteta's ability to maneuver and adapt in difficult situations has not always been successful. And so if I felt like Arteta was going to be able to figure out a creative way to help us win in this difficult moment, then I would feel a little bit less sad or disappointed about our windows. But Arteta, if he doesn't have like-for-like, struggles. Doesn't have like-for-like, he struggles. If he doesn't have his starting 11, his best 11 all the time, he struggles in those moments. You know, and when I say his best 11, I'm not saying the odd moment where he doesn't have Tomiyasu, the odd moment where he doesn't have Thomas Partey. I'm talking about no Saka, no Odegaard, no Saliba. You know, so... And when we didn't have Saliba a couple of years ago, we know how that went. So I think that's where it really comes from. The whole fans, will they give Arteta credit? I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. But expecting fans not to voice their concerns and then also like not celebrate if they had concerns, I think is just, that's not human nature. That's just not human nature, but thank you for your super chat. Let's see. Anton Dunn says, Saka better not play more than 15 minutes today. Him and Rice will play all 90 minutes. We're going to be holding our breath because we still have probably 3 major players that we need to make sure gets through these games. Do the Netherlands have a game? So what is it? Timber, Saka, Havertz, and Rice that we're hoping get through these next couple of games. So yeah. Also, I'm hoping that Calafiori's is just a knock and he can play at the weekend. I just feel like he's ready to start, but the likelihood of that I feel like is it's just unlikely now. I think even if it's a small knock, probably won't play. But he looked really good for Italy. And he's looked good in all of his cameos. I don't understand why he doesn't start. So, and that's no shade to Timber. Timber is one of my favorites. Again, people are like, you're choosing your favorites. I don't even want Timber to play on the left. And I don't want him to play in midfield. So I'm not just choosing my favorites. Blaze says, I think the reason Arsenal fans moan is because we didn't win major trophies in 4 years, and that's why some fans have PTSD frustration. Arteta needs trying win trophies to give fans assurance. And, you know, like I said at the beginning of this, you will probably get what you want in terms of negative fans not having platforms anymore the minute that we start winning trophies. The longer we go without winning trophies, the longer the positive group lose their what is the word? Their argument starts to seem less valid. You know, you're not winning trophies. So we haven't won anything in 4 years, and we haven't won a Premier League in over 20 now. So until you start doing that, a lot of this stuff that people are claiming just will happen naturally, people are going to be skeptical of. If you've gone 20 years without winning something, it's really difficult without winning a major trophy. It's really difficult for some people to get on board with it's just going to happen. So yeah, I don't really care about sounding negative because like every year at the end of the season, most of the things that I say end up being true. So, you know, I don't know what to tell you. Winning Way says Saliba will be gone next year if we don't win anything, and that will be the big blow to our team. I think maybe 2 years ago, not was it 2 years ago? Yeah, it was about 2 years ago when I said, listen, if if we don't start winning, they will start looking at our players. And no amount of hitting the badge or saying that you want to win major trophies with Arsenal is going to stop you from going to Real Madrid. And so, our best bet was Lenny Yoro going there, and he's now at Manchester United. They are going to target Saliba. Anybody who doesn't think that that's going to happen is living on a completely different planet. He just oozes Real Madrid. Like he's an all-timer. And Mbappe will convince him to go there. And it won't take much convincing anyway. So we have to win while Saliba's here because we will not be able to replace him. Arsenal are not going to be able to go out in the market and identify a Saliba replacement. So, we probably have a couple more years with him, whether we win things or not, so, but because we can't replace him, we need to try to win things while we have him here. And I'm just not, and to me, that's not even negative to say. I feel like that's how football goes. Top players are going to want to be in places where they can win the biggest honors. And Saliba he's 23. He is going to at some stage play for Real Madrid. We just have to hope it's not soon. It's not soon, and the only way we can cut that out is if we start winning things. But yeah, he's Saliba is probably this is going to sound harsh to Saka, but probably our most likely player to play for Real Madrid, which I think is like the highest that you could go in the game from a club perspective is to play for Real Madrid. And so of course they're going to target him. Of course, like it's not every time I see the rumors come up, I don't even flinch anymore because it's like, of course they're going to try to get him. I don't think Arsenal will be interested in selling, but at a certain stage, you won't be able to renew him. So, let's see. Die Hard says Osimhen won the Italian league at Napoli. Do you understand that was only ever done by Diego before to be treated that way? We know what it is. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to block this fucking idiot because he's like pretty much the dumbest person I've ever seen. Johnny D says, agreed, Saliba is the only one who could start for Real Madrid. Now from our team, it's just facts. To me, it's not a deep thing. Like to me, it's natural that when you have top quality players that have the potential to be like, he's already probably the best center back in the world, if not top 2 or 3. It's only a matter of time before the best teams. And I don't think he'll leave us for a PSG or a Bayern, but for a Real Madrid, yeah. Because that's guaranteed trophies, but we have to start winning. And I think that's the elephant in the room, in most conversations when Arsenal fans are talking, it's that there's this element of, it was fun when nobody expected us to do anything, but now that we're back in a position where, and a lot of Arsenal fans have never even felt anything close to this because they're young and that's not their fault. Being young is not a problem, but there was a period of time where Arsenal were not only expected to win the league, but they were also expected to win domestic cups and also go far in Champions League. And that was just normal. That pressure was normal. And once we got to a point where we were no longer competitive, other teams picked our players off. Like, that's just how it goes. We were still good when Chelsea took Ashley Cole from us. You know what I mean? So they've never felt this before where we're expected to win. And I think there's comfort in being in a position where there's no expectations on the club, or there's no expectations. So you're just enjoying the process, but we fully move past that now. And that's where that level of anxiety comes out, I think, because we know that we're probably a season or two away from losing top players to other teams. We're a season or two away from missing our window. We're a season or two away for like that's just kind of where we're at. So people just want us to win. And I think most people, even though critical of the club, just want us to win. But the other side just says you're just being negative. And it's not that, because if you live through Ashley Cole leaving, if you live through those moments, you would be frustrated. But you would be frustrated. So Terrence says Chelsea took Cole because Wenger screwed him over with low wages. I mean, but like, if they weren't a good team that could even chat to him, they wouldn't have been able to take him even with the lower wages. And we also know that Arsenal do not overpay. Like, they are very thing about they'll let you go. Even in this era that we're in right now, Cheetah Obi Martin wanted crazy wages, and instead of paying him those, they let him go to a rival. So that is who we are as the fabric of the club. We're not going to overpay the wages and all that kind of stuff to keep players around. So no matter what way you slice it, we will get to a point, if we're not winning, where other teams will test the resolve of our players. And a lot of times, even if they're not better than us, at the time, it'll come in the form of money. And Arsenal are not going to pay what Chelsea are going to pay you. Arsenal are not going to pay what Man City are going to pay you. They're not going to, so for me, it's that's just, we've been this way for so long. So we kind of know that we need to start winning things. And, that's this season, we kind of needed to do it like a couple seasons ago, but now more than ever. And I feel like that's why there's so much like, oh, you're just being negative and toxic. It's because they know that we need to start winning. And no amount of yelling at me is going to make the team win. Jonathan says 100 million to keep him until he's a free agent. We can't let them bully us like Barca did Fabregas. Blaze says, Jess, aren't you worried also about Saka and Odegaard? I'm not as worried about Odegaard. Obviously Saka will leave. He wanted a release clause in his contract. He wants to have a way to move if Arsenal don't move forward. Saka is not this sweet little cherub that people think he is. Like, Saka is a demon that wants to win. He gets better every year, and he gets meaner every year. And we love it when it's for us. But, his agent is no joke. Like, I think we're not right there yet. Like, obviously, it's not going to happen tomorrow. But, yeah, Saka will go to another club if we're not winning. Like, that's just how football goes. Like, it's not, in this whole, well, of course we're going to win, so why are we talking about it thing? There is no guarantee that we're going to win. There is no guarantee that we're going to win until we start winning. No one, like, you cannot begrudge anybody for being skeptical about the direction that the club is going in. Pixel says Arsenal can pay the wages that Man City pay. It's not Arsenal can. They've always been able to pay those wages. They just don't. So know your club. If you've been around since the Emirates era, you know that if it comes down to having to pay a player to stay, to bat off the advances from other clubs, we do not match those wages. We just don't. So it's not a matter of, do we have the money? It's, will we do it? We don't. We've always let our players go if they wanted more, and we were not willing to offer it. So, like, I've been around long enough. Like, I know how Arsenal operate. They will allow players to go. They'll only pay so much. And so, yeah. Johnny says the hard truth is that there's no guarantee that they'll stay even if we win, if we don't continue the winning trend. Let's see. Terrence says Romero more likely to get a red. Let's see. Lumen says Terrence Tibbs, are odds good for Jorginho getting a red against Spurs? Oh my gosh. And we says, no, they can't pay Man City wages, especially with the new PSR rules. Winning Ways says Rodrigo is more in a conversation with Yamal and Salah for right wing than everybody else. Drops below that. Saka, Rafinha, Dembele, Sané, Gnabry. I think that's harsh on Saka, to be honest. Dembele, that's just ridiculous. Dembele, Sané, Gnabry, none of those players to me are on Saka's level. I get Rodrigo has been overlooked for the Ballon d'Or, and there's always a subsection of our fans that want to, I don't know if it's kowtowing to rivals or whatever, and trying to play down how good Saka is, but Saka genuinely walks into most teams, probably just not Liverpool. And maybe he would have to fight a little bit at Real Madrid for the right wing, but Saka to me is on the level. Like I just think he's on the level. I think there's a reason why Rodrigo was overlooked, and I think that's because his production levels aren't that great. His talent is there, but he's stagnating anyway. At Real Madrid, he needs to go somewhere where he's more of the focus. Not only that, he needs to play on the left wing, which is his natural position. So I don't know. I think Saka, we can firmly put Saka on a certain level and just leave him there. I don't think as Arsenal fans we need to kowtow to rivals in that way and, play down Saka. Most rivals would gag at the chance for Saka to play for them, and most clubs in Europe would. Rodrigo is probably on the same level as Saka. He is talent-wise. He just needs to prioritize his own career, which he just doesn't. I don't. I get that you want to play it for Real Madrid. I get it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was singing another tune next summer, because there's just not going to be a natural spot for him there. But I kind of get what you're saying, but the constant pushing Saka down, I don't get it, because Saka has proved time and time again, like he's that guy. Like Saka is like he's top level, and we don't have to pretend he's not anymore. Johnny says Saka is close to top 3 wingers in the world, not quite there yet. Yeah, when you start mixing in the other side, like genuinely, I'm really trying to think like, you have Nico Williams, who I don't think is like, I think he's more of like the up and coming vibe, but he's good. Rafinha, he's really fallen away. I think he's getting like, he's in and out, but his consistency is nowhere near Saka's over the last 2 years. Dembele is a joke. Let's be serious. And Saka's established too. Some of these newer people, like the Nico Williams and the Barcolas, those guys, they're not even established like Saka is. Saka's genuinely established. So like it's Vinny Jr., Salah. I'm really trying to think hard. Who I just know, like without a shadow of a doubt, is just better than Saka. Those are the only two that I feel like with my gut, I'm like, they're definitely better. Rodrigo, if you asked me a year ago, I would say yes. I would say now that a year has gone past, not sure. I think Saka's right there. So yeah, it's tough. I think I don't think we have to pretend Saka's not what he is anymore. And I think people like using the Euros and stuff like that. I think it was funny that people were using the Euros as a barometer for him, because Southgate is a terrorist. like Southgate was a terrorist, just like the way that they played against with Lee Carsley one game. I know it was Ireland, but come on. Like Southgate can make Messi look like shit. Like his football was genuine terrorism, so like Saka not looking like his normal self. I mean, the fact that he was even usable is much more than a lot of other players can say under Southgate. So for club and country, Saka is that guy. And some people can't even say that. Some people can't even say that for club and country. They cannot say. So yeah, I think if Saka, like I would say this for Arsenal fans, I feel like if Saka played for anyone else, we would rate Saka so much higher. But because he's ours, I feel like there is like this want to always play him down because rivals are always talking about how he doesn't move them and blah, blah, blah. Genuinely, if there's one player in our team that you should always stand up for is Saka. Genuinely. Saliba's already certified and but Saka is one of those players where I feel like as a fan base, we should have our full chest, like with chest speaking up for Saka for real. But it also would be easier if we won things. Like Saka just needs to win something. That also helps. Foxy says, need to see Saka get Arsenal over the line, winning a major trophy, standing out in defining games this season. Yet to see that from him. People use generational and world-class these days. Generational and world-class are two completely different conversations. They're not even in the same basket. A generational talent is you're never going to see that again from somebody probably in that position in a generation. To me, generational it's not really in the tier list, but it's a subsection of something else you can add on to somebody. To me, like Trent is a generational talent. You're not ever going to find another right back that can do what he can do at the level that he's done it, but he's also world class. You can add generational on. Saka is not generational, but I do believe he's world class. I kind of agree with some of these, like get Arsenal over the line, winning a major trophy, but those things would make him elite for me. So yeah, I kind of agree with some of these things, but some people hold world class very high. I don't. I don't. Jerome says, don't mean to be negative, but I don't think we will win the league. We didn't do anything in the window, but I think this team can win an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup. To me, I don't think saying that you don't think that we'll win the league is that negative. I feel like people that think that that's negative need to touch grass. Like Manchester City are still far and clear the best team in the league. And then Liverpool also look good. And we didn't do that much in the window to close the gap. And we already didn't win the last two seasons with pretty much the same group that we have now. So I don't really think that you're being negative saying that. Now, I do agree that we can win a domestic cup, but winning domestic cups also requires you to like actually prioritize them a little bit more. And I do think that we usually don't, so I think we could definitely win a domestic cup. And I think we have to get through the season with a trophy. And I would prefer the Premier League, obviously, but I'd prefer something over nothing. Amina says Neymar is generational. I agree. He is generational. You're never going to find anybody else in this generation that can do. Neymar is the closest thing we're talent-wise that will get to Messi and Ronaldo, and I don't even think it's close. We're very lucky that we were able to see with our own two eyes those players play for so many years at the peak of their powers, and that the peak of their powers lasted for like 10 years, because that's never going to happen. I mean, it would probably never happen again. And we also got to at least enjoy Neymar. But like generational is something that I do think people just throw around. You have to never see it again, like in that generation, that level of player, I do think Trent is generational because he's so unique, and the inverted fullback is something that people always want to see, and they want to see playmakers from the back. And there's just certain things that he can do that other, like even some midfielders couldn't even dream of. They could never do it. Trent, from a really he's a special player. He's a special player. So yeah. Pixel says Saka bagged 25 goals last season in all comps. He's a great player. I've seen an EPL trophy, so that's where I'm coming from. I would rather win the Champions League. I don't care what it is. I get the Champions League would obviously tick a box that we've never ticked before. So until we win that, we'll be, no European history. But I will take anything at this point. Boy says Trent does things on the pitch that can't be coached. Exactly. He does things like that. I'm just like, I don't know if we're actually like deeping how insane some of the things that he can do. But this is another reason why I'm always like, don't ever count Liverpool out, because they have certain players in their team that just have a certain level of quality that when they're on the pitch and they're playing, because obviously like Trent's had some injury issues and whatever, they're special, so yeah, I think Trent is great. I think he's great. Ali says Trent does stuff that you can't coach. It's unique. That's why he is generational Beckham-esque from right back, simple as. I agree. Shamara says we'll win a trophy this season. We need to. Burmy says, to be honest, I'm concerned about maintaining top 4. I think we can do it, but it'll be tough. Listen, I don't even want to start to speak the top 4 scrap into existence. I will say that it doesn't take much to be out of a title race. I know that people are like, well, this early, you can't count us out. But I do think dropping too many points early, as we saw last season, could make it really difficult for you to stay in that top 4 race. That Liverpool game was such a closing doors moment at home, because had we not won that game, we would have been virtually out of the title race. And we kept ourselves in it by having to be almost perfect in the second half of the season. And you don't want to have to be in a position like that. You don't want to have to be in a position where you have to win every single game in 2024 in order to be in the title race still. And so I do think there's the way of thinking about it where it's so early in the season, anything can happen. But I think that doesn't apply to the title race. I don't think that applies to the title race. I think that applies to everything else, top 4, relegation, all that kind of stuff, European spots. But when it comes to the title race, you really can only lose like 2 or 3 games. Genuinely, against Manchester City, they lost 3, we lost 5. So we need to be really careful, early on, and remember that like there's certain games that you have to win no matter who you have on your team. Spurs away right now is you kind of need to win that to win the league, because we already have it where we don't need to beat Manchester City away, and we're not expected to, and we're probably not going to. Liverpool away is also something that we always kind of are like, we don't have to win that game. So that puts more pressure on the Manchester United away, Old Trafford, Tottenham, Chelsea. Then you add Aston Villa, which we've gained a point there, but then we dropped 2 for the Brighton game, So in comparison to last season, we're up 1, I think, if I'm doing the math right. So in the title race, it's very it's different than, it's early in the season, anything can happen. Not really in the title race. You kind of need to not drop very many points early. And so Spurs, we have to go and win, and regardless of who's out there. And so whether it's Jorginho and Kai and Partey or something different, my expectation is that we go there and win. I think this is where your Sakas need to carry you. This is where, those players that are getting paid the money need to step up, when we don't have our perfect 11. And that's what would be expected of City, and that's what should be expected of us. So We have to win still. And I expect us to. Jonathan says we can lose max 3 to 5 games to beat City. Yeah, max. We're pushing it with 5. We really are. And so when you think about, we're going to have City coming up soon. Now, after the City game, we have a really good run, like a good run of games that are winnable, very winnable, good games, for us. So we should be feeling a lot more confident, like for that next month. But right now, the focus is really on making sure you beat Spurs by hook or by crook. Doesn't matter. You need to beat them. And then you need to go to City at the Etihad and make sure that you don't lose. That's kind of the remit here. Boy says Trent is better than Dani Alves. Trent executes things on the pitch without genius in midfield. Terrence says Trossard scored more goals at Anfield than Henry managed in his whole career. I mean, what does that even mean? What are you trying to say with that statement? What are you even trying to say? I don't know what you guys are talking about, but let's not be silly. Blaze says, Jess, where's Tomiyasu? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Their most recent, there hasn't been a real update on him, that he's still injured and he'll be out for a while still, that he's making progress, I think. So I don't know. He'll be fit, probably just about fit to go on an international break, the next international break, to go play for Japan. Again, Tomiyasu being injured is not the biggest deal in the world, because we bought a million left backs, but it is frustrating because he's always injured, but he seems to play for Japan every time, so yeah, I love Tommy, but I don't love his injuries. And Jesus should be back for the North London Derby. Is he going to start? I would imagine so. I think the injury to Odegaard almost almost writes it. It makes it so he will start. So we'll see what his mindset is like, because he just seems like I don't know, The boss says no excuses, beat Tottenham. We have been gaslighted into believing our squad is world class. I mean, if you say no excuses, people will be upset, but I just don't know how you can't one day be saying how great we are and how there's no reason to worry, and then not have expectations of us to win no matter what. And so I do think people speak out of both sides of their mouth. I still think that we should be beating Tottenham. But I can see us not winning, and then people using the injuries as excuses. And then I would go back to, but you said the window was perfect, so why don't we have a team that's good enough with injuries to beat Spurs? So there's no real way out of it. We should be beating Spurs. Shamaria says we ain't got the title winners luck this season. But here's my thing, Shamaria, is that even when we had luck with injuries, which if we're honest, last 2 seasons we did have luck. I mean, we lost Saliba at the final hurdle, but if we keep it all the way a buck, Saliba is not going down, is not a reason why you should draw to West Ham after being 2-0 up, why you should draw to Liverpool after being 2-0 up, why you should draw to Southampton at home. So we collapsed because we collapsed. Saliba made it easier to collapse, but we just collapsed. But the rest of the season, we still had, again, we had the Sakas, the Odegaards for the whole season. Even Partey stayed fit almost the entire season that season. Then the next season, we had almost everybody was fit almost the entire season. Partey was not, but it didn't matter because we had other players, So when we look at ours in comparison to other people, I do think we've been lucky enough to have a good group and not feel like we are riddled with injury like other people do. But, we need to be at the point now where we're still winning games with key players missing. That is what other teams would do. That's what Liverpool would do. And that's what, City would do. And so this whole idea that, first of all, the level of panic, I think, speaks to the fact that people do not trust our squad because they know we don't have like real options that we trust. But we should be in a space where, yeah, Odegaard being out sucks, but it shouldn't ignite the level of panic that we've seen. But it does, because we know we haven't done anything to make sure that we have a good option, another creative player that we can put in that can create the way that Odegaard does. So yeah. Let's see. Johnny says there's definitely our excuses not to win at Spurs, but we must if we want to win the title. I mean, they'll find one. There's nothing like an Arsenal fan and an excuse, but I mean, the excuse is already there. They'll either blame the ref or blame the injuries, but in reality, we should be able to play our game to a good standard at this stage in our progression without key players. That doesn't mean we should be perfect. I'm not saying that it should be just like if we had our perfect 11, but the level that we drop to without them is scary. And it's also scary how people think it's normal, because it's not. You expect to see a dip, but the dip that we get is not normal. Like, it's not. But, that's where we're at. Concrete Jungle says this is where we as a team need to develop mental strength in time of adversity. I agree with this. I don't feel like there's any reason why they should go to the Tottenham Stadium and not feel like they should be winning. I don't see why, Odegaard or not. They should go there without Rice and Odegaard, and the players that are there should feel like they should still be winning and make it happen. I don't see why they wouldn't, unless, you can't stumble at the first couple of hurdles. You can't. That's why I hate when our players talk anyway, because they talk about winning things, but then when we get in moments of adversity, they don't do what's required to win in those moments. I expect you to win in these moments now, Amina says, last year we waited for City to drop points. I don't want the same fate again this season. Burmy says, one, maybe two elite players out is not bad, but right now it's the entire midfield. Arteta is going to have to raise his coaching acumen up a level to navigate these injuries. I mean, it's funny because before now, people were saying that Marino wasn't even a starter. So now it's our whole midfield is out. But a couple of weeks ago, it was Partey is a guaranteed starter and Marino's just going to hit the bench. So what is it? Partey is our best midfielder, according to so many of our fan base. So they should be confident that Partey is in there. In fact, he's been the only one that's been playing well this season. That's what I heard. So as long as you have him, at least you have one, right? And Partey, when he's fit, is one of the best DMs in the league. That's what I'm hearing. So, I get the whole Marino thing, but we've never seen him play for us. So, and we started with Partey. So you have Partey, you have Jorginho, you have Havertz, you have Winery. Make it work. Make it shake. Make it shake. I expect to see a win. It doesn't have to be pretty either. Jerome says, what can Arsenal do right now to win versus Spurs and potentially City, in your opinion? Want it more than they want it. You can start there. I think mentality goes a long fucking way when you don't have the players that you need to have. Like, I think a lot of times when things are not going our way, we fold up, so I think mentality, and I think Arteta needs to, figure out a midfield that doesn't suck. I think it's all about coaching, at this stage, and empowering or putting his players in positions to be successful in stressful situations, because they can't afford to fold up. They really can't. They have to want it more than anyone else. And to be honest, a lot of people commended our team against Brighton for sticking with it. Despite all these things going against us, I felt 2 points dropped a lot of people felt 1 point gained. And I felt like we could have still won the game and we should have, but listen, that's just kind of in difficult scenarios. I do feel like we tend to not be able to get to the 100, the best circumstance. Like we can never get to the, oh my God, they persevered through all that and won. We usually drop the points. So I think them wanting it and actually saying, at the beginning of the game, like we're not going to lose, like no matter what, we're going to step up. Somebody's going to have a Kovacic game, like the type of match that Kovacic had against Chelsea away from home in that first game without Rodri is the type of match that a Partey or, a Jorginho or one of these dudes is going to have. Somebody has to step the fuck up and make it happen, and then Arteta needs to just set up the team where they can be confident, but also dangerous. I think most of the time his most important thing when we're in a position like this is to just protect, and not lose. I don't think you can play not to lose in a North London derby. I think you have to play to win. This is not going to the Etihad. This is going to your arch nemesis. I don't think you can just go and park the bus and hope to limit the damage. I think you have to have a dangerous front group. So he has to have his best attack, and he has to figure out a way where that team can get that ball to those players. Often that's what's missing. We go in there scared, we go with a pragmatic something, and then we can't create any chances, so I just feel like he can't do that, but listen, we have a whole week until this game. So Arteta has a whole week to figure this shit out, because we got to win. Blaze says, I agree with you, Jess. Some of our players like Partey need to step up. I'm trying to figure out when's the last time that we were in a situation like this and we had players that just stepped up and made special things happen under really difficult circumstances. It's very rare, usually we just drop the points, so yeah, we have to, but also the manager has to put them in positions where they can feel and kind of like they can make those things happen. And that comes with him setting up the team properly. I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope we win. I do. Jonathan says Sterling can hurt them with their high line. I think he should start. I don't know why Sterling would not start. Just like I would have been starting Calafiori from the beginning too. Like we need something fresh in the team and team players that aren't jaded by the last two transfer windows. Our last two title challenges. Die Hard Gunner says, guys, we dropped points because Rice was dumb. Not that we were bad. I mean, no, we weren't great against Brighton. I know that it's easy to blame Rice because, he got a red card. So that meant that there was just no way that we could have won that game. Not only did Odegaard miss the sitter and also Saka missed a really good opportunity in the first half, but then we went down to 10 men. We played scared. We sat in our box, poor defending. And then we had multiple opportunities after that to win the game and we didn't. So the red card, there or not, we should have still won that game, and it wasn't just Rice. That was a poor moment. But at the same time, like any Arsenal fan that's sitting there thinking that the referee made the right call needs like real help. Pixel says Villa Park is a very difficult place. At least we went there and we won that. I mean, that helped. That helped a lot because we needed to get those points back on the board. Blaze says, why am I seeing chat slander Wenger on Reinvincibles and Arteta? People need to calm down. I don't know. I don't care. At least they won major trophies. Jerome says, is Defo start Sterling in these next two games. He has X factor and he's not jaded. Like, I'm not saying 100% like I'm not saying the players don't care, but I do feel like after 2 failed attempts at winning the league, you do become a little bit like, you need something fresh, and Martinelli has not come into the season looking any different than last season. So start Sterling. Give us something fresh. Like, the most important thing is the team, and it's just be nice to get something, especially on that left-hand side, something new cooking, So I would start Sterling. Like, I would. Fuck it. Fuck it. Next time, maybe start Martinelli against Bolton and see if he can get a goal or two there and start from there. Boy says best midfield is Odegaard, Winery, and Rice by February. Diehard says just Rice got a red card. He cost that game. I know he's one of your faves, but real talk, that game was on him 100%. We always miss chances, but if we play 11v11, we win easily. I mean, you can't say that for sure, though. That's an opinion. Your opinion is that if we played 11v11, we would have won easily, but there's no guarantee we would have won that game, and we missed too many chances. Sorry. And Rice is one of my favorites. But if this was a different player, I don't think you'd be saying that. But, yeah. Millen says, if Partey got the red card, what would be the reaction? That red card, it's always about what kind of red card it was. That was just so, like, not it. Like, and you guys know it. But I get it. It's whataboutism, and it's just on Rice, and it's just that. But we've seen games like that before where we just weren't that great against Brighton. Sorry. But listen, and Xhaka, you would have slaughtered him. Again, I always look at what kind of red card it is. You're saying things without actually having any evidence of this, because I had my channel when Xhaka was getting red cards. So if you can find a time where I just slaughtered him and he didn't deserve the red card, there were times where he deserved the red card. There were times that he didn't. And I always said which ones were and which ones they weren't. To me, that just wasn't enough for a red card for Declan Rice. We all know it. I just feel like people want a whataboutism on it. And we still should have won the game. You still should have won the game. So, but I get it. But when other players, so just remember, since you're saying it's just a red card and it doesn't matter and he was stupid, when someone else gets the red card, have that same energy, because we will have somebody else get a red card and it'll be somebody that you like more. Most people that feel like Rice was just being dumb are people that want Partey to be our main midfielder. Well, you got it. So make sure he marshals that midfield on Sunday, because you got what you wanted. Odegaard won't be in the way. Rice won't be in the way. Perfect scenario. Like, let's be serious. Let's see. Johnny D says, well, Jess, I can tell you with 100% certainty, much, much more people agree we would have won that game easily 11v11 than those who agree upon the Rice second yellow. I don't care about who agrees. Arsenal fans, in fact, most of the time when most people agree is when people are wrong. Just because like a lot of people are saying something doesn't mean that they're right. I think it's copium. 11v11, we just wiped Brighton away. We had halfway through that half, we had lost control of that game. Brighton weren't getting amazing chances, but at some point they probably would have. 11v11 did not guarantee anything. It wasn't a red card, and we still had chances to win. Sorry, we still should have beat them, period. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but anyways, Mosquito says, hi, Jess. I only support Arsenal. I don't follow national teams. I'm sorry, because they're doing serious damage to us. The club I belong to should make themselves heard, in my opinion. No. I mean, the fans are never going to turn on the club now. They don't want to go back into Wenger days, so they'll pretend like everything is fine. Envy says, if you get a red card from 2 yellows, it means you gave the referee the chance to give you a yellow card. And as yellows are always subjective, you are living on what the ref wants to do. That's fair enough. But Rice is not the reason why we lost the game. Like, he's not well, I'll put it this way. You can't say without a shadow of a doubt that there's no way that we could have won that game with a man down. That's what I'll say. So no matter how you try to like manipulate the conversation into, well, Rice got a red card, so that meant that there was no way that we can win, so it's all his fault. That negates the two big chances that we saw that both Saka and Havertz should have put in the back of the net. We 100% should have still won that game. We still had chances to win it. So if you still had chances to win it and you could have, then you can't just say that the red card means that that's the reason why we didn't win the game. I'm so sorry. Like, because you have to go on what you actually saw, not 11v11 situation we did not see, but we saw us 10 versus 11 versus them, and we know we could have still won the game. So you're going with hypotheticals. I'm going with what actually happened. What actually happened is we got the red card, and we still had chances to win, and we still should have won. So it's not an excuse that you got the red card that meant that drawing to Brighton at home was just the only outcome. So I'm actually right, because there's no way to prove what you guys are saying. There's no way to prove that 11v11 we beat Brighton. No way to prove it. And even if you say, well, last year we beat them 11v11, well, 11v11 last season we didn't beat Aston Villa and we beat them this season. So last season doesn't matter. 10v11 we had chances. Actually, yeah, I am right. Like, yeah, the more you think about it, the more right I am. Like, you guys are going with hypotheticals. I'm going with what actually happened. We could have beat them with 10 men on that day. We could have beat them right then. But 11v11, like, there's no guarantee we would have won it. So there was another outcome. But whatever. I don't know, guys. I get you want to blame Rice for it. I think it's mostly just because you want to prove that Partey is the best, or something like that. Hopefully he takes us over the line. I don't know what to tell you. Jacob says, so we was weaker, had chances to win, but stronger team. We don't. I'm just saying that you can't say 11v11, you guarantee that we would have won. You can only go by what you saw. And what I saw was that even though we were a man down, we could have won the game. And that's the only thing that you can use to validate an argument. That's it. Sorry. Like, I don't know how to explain it in a simpler way, but going with a hypothetical, like, people are, well, if we would have just beat one more team last season, we would have won the league. You don't know that. You don't know that because that's a hypothetical. So 11v11 is a hypothetical. We don't know what would have happened 11v11, but what we do know is that 10 versus 11, we could have still won the game. That's all I'm saying, is you have to throw out a hypothetical because it's just hypothetical. It's not an actual situation, but yeah. Let's see. Winning Way says, in a couple of years, we won't be rating Rice as much. Actually, let's talk about Rice really quick. I know this is a long stream, but I have time today. Rice played just fine for Lee Carsley the other day. And this is for all the people that are saying that he can't play number 6 for us. He can if you coach properly. He can. Like, he's always been able to play 6 for us. He's always been able to play 6 for England. Always. You just need a coach that actually sets them up in a way that actually works. You know, in the 8, it just doesn't work. But if he can actually make those runs from deep and support the attack, but he has the structure around him, it works. You know, so Rice actually looked really good for Lee Carsley. And I hope that Arteta goes back to that, because we've seen Arteta use that same exact formula, but he strayed away from it this season and started playing him as a second striker, which is like the worst way to use him. So I actually think we'll go back to rating Rice a lot more once Arteta just deads this whole second striker bullshit, because he's a great player. And the only reason why people don't rate him is, 1, because he plays for Arsenal, and 2, because Arteta uses him terribly. Pixel says, let's get Cancelo, Laporte, and Mahrez to build another city. Do you want me to jump off a cliff? Boy says, Arteta needs to stop trying to play Rice as a left center mid. He's going to cost us. Millen says, Barca, Henry wasn't the best version of Henry. Victor says, nah, the way people are turning on Rice is genuinely disgusting. And this is like Ireland was shite. So again, like actually this is, I know it because I know your guys' tags and I know how you guys think. Most people that are fully blaming Rice for the loss again or dropping points against Brighton are people that are mad because Partey was replaced by Rice. And now they're trying to discount his performance against Ireland when it's not really about the opposition. It's about the way that he was used. It's not about the opposition. It's not about the opposition. It's about the way that he was used. So, I mean, I had somebody yelling at me in my Twitter comments about, but Ireland are not good. I don't give a fuck if Ireland are good or not. I like the way Lee Carsley used Rice in that game. And we've already seen Rice play at a high level for Arsenal. So we know he's good. We're not trying to see if Rice is a good player. We're not trying to understand if Rice can play for Arsenal. We're not trying to see if we're trying to understand what the best position is for Rice and how to utilize him the best to get the best out of his abilities. We're beyond understanding if Rice is a good player or not. So I get it. Rice came in and then Partey was set to the side and mostly by his own doing because he was out injured. And so now people are trying to prove a point. But the only reason why we're going to see more of Partey now anyway is because Marino is injured. I can't wait till we play Rice at the 6 and Marino at the 8. I can't fucking wait to move beyond this fucking nonsense because Rice is more than good enough to play 6 for Arsenal. He just needs another ball player on the other side. So, yeah, it's just so obvious. It's so obvious. Theo says one of our players should have faked an injury to give Arteta time to reorganize the defense after the red card. The best defense in the league shouldn't concede immediately after a red card. I thought this as well, that the fact that we conceded like really quickly after, we were so discombobulated and we just at this stage, like a red card shouldn't mean dropping points. I don't know why we accept it as such. People were saying, but it's Brighton and they're such a great team. Fuck off. Like, seriously, Brighton are not Real Madrid. You know, they're not a Champions League level team. It shouldn't be a certain dropping points because you lost a player. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my whole life. And I've heard some dumb shit before. But the justification of dropping points because you go down a man is the exact type of thinking that a team that is fighting for a title should not have. We should still expect us to keep our lead. We shouldn't expect us to sit in the box. We shouldn't expect us like to not even be able to pass the ball to each other. We were so discombobulated in that moment. We give up a goal that was so not us. One straight ball down the middle into our box, weak defending from both of our center backs, and then nobody following up the runner. Like, that was ridiculous. But, you know, it's like red card equals dropping points just is not what any elite team would say. Not any elite team. Maybe a team fighting for top 4 or fighting for European positions. And yeah, you're thinking, oh, you go down a man, that means you should drop points. No, like we were winning the game, by the way. We didn't need to lose, or we didn't need to drop those points. We dropped it because we weren't smart enough. Like, you know, Winning Way says Valverde does what Rice does and better on the ball. Don't even come in the same conversation. Honestly, I don't really give a fuck about this. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, Rice being constantly like, oh, well, he's not as good. Like, you're never going to gaslight me into thinking the guy is not good. If he didn't play for us and he played for City, you guys would be on your fucking knees. Like, be fucking for real. Like, you'd be on your knees. Why didn't we get Rice? Oh my God, why didn't we spend the money to get Rice? Oh my God, we should have Rice. Like, come on. Like, you're not going to gaslight me. This whole Saka's not elite and he's not world class and Rice is not a good player. He's overrated. Just come on. Like, be serious. Kashima says the league is going to need to concentrate on actually winning a cup. Victor says Declan Rice has 15 GA and 90 pass accuracy this season. No other player has more GA and has passed the ball that accurately in a single PL season in the last 10 years, but he's a bad passer, I guess. There's actually a comp going around of Rice versus Brighton last season. Oh, I have something here. against Brighton last season, I think it was at home where he played in the 6, he was phenomenal. I mean, this was Gross and Gilmore, wherever the fuck they had in their midfield, and Rice was great in that game. The idea that he's not a good player and he can't play 6 for us, to me, is something I'll always fight against. I feel like it's nonsense. I can always go back and figure out where the source of the nonsense usually comes from. It's usually coming from, I want another player there that I like more, or something like that. Or this whole idea that people only like Rice because he's white and they don't like Partey because he's not. There are plenty of other reasons not to like Partey. It doesn't have anything to do with his skin color. But Rice is a top quality player that, when used correctly, I think is one of the best in the league. When he's not used correctly, I think his deficiencies show, and most really good players still have deficiencies. Only the best of the best have like no flaws, and even they still do. So, yeah. And I'm not saying that he's the best passer in between the lines and all that type of stuff, but I don't think that's really his game. And I don't really think that matters. When we play with Rice in midfield, we're so good at counter pressing and pressing and winning the ball off of other teams and just being on the front foot that a lot of times we don't have to build out from the back. When you play with Partey, you have to build from the back. You have to do the slow passing from Raya back and forth, standing on top of the ball. With Rice, it's a little bit different. You almost can afford to let the other team have the ball and just jump on top of them, win it, and create a chance that way. And I don't think people clocked it last season because they didn't want to. The way that we created chances with Rice in midfield was much different. We didn't have to create the perfect goal from back to front. We didn't have to. But with Partey, you kind of have to do it that way because you're not going to be able to be as adventurous pressing. With Rice, you can be. So I will always advocate for Rice. I think he's just a great player, and I don't know why we're even having conversations like this. I feel like it's disingenuous, but that doesn't mean that other players are not good. But we have to have these silly conversations all the time. Millen says he runs into space. He should be using as a passing lane. There's multiple ways to create chances. There's multiple ways to play football, and there's multiple ways to be a midfielder. As a midfielder, obviously passing is important, but carrying the ball. Morgan Rogers wasn't passing shit against us. He was just running through our midfield. So we all know that there's different ways, especially if you wanted Onana, you didn't want passing. You wanted somebody to run through the midfield. So we all know that there's different ways to be a midfielder and to be good in midfield. Rice doesn't have to be the same level of passing as Partey to be a better number 6 than him for us. But I think most of the time, Rice has been set up by having Havertz in midfield with him. I'll say that for sure. And I also think Partey has suffered from the second striker bullshit too. So, yeah. And nobody is saying Rodri is not better off and on the ball than Rice. Nobody gives a fuck. Like, saying Valverde is better and Rodri is better doesn't mean that Rice is not a top quality player. You get what I'm saying? Like, saying Vinny Jr. is better and Salah is better than Saka does not mean that Saka is not good. Whataboutism doesn't work, But I do think, we're getting off track here. I think Rice still has room to develop, like most of our players, but he also was one of our best players last season. So it's kind of like whatever, Jerome says Rice best attributes are interceptions, long shots, and driving forward with the ball from deep, which are all things that if they existed within another player that was not Rice, we'd want that player. We'd be gagging for that player. Look at that player. He drives the ball forward. He's good at shooting from outside of the box. Look at his interceptions. He's on the front foot. But we have Rice, and now it's like it's a problem. And I think it's only a problem because he displaces someone else, to be frank. Theo says Rice can switch. With our team being so right half space biased, we have loads of right half space to left half space switching opportunities. Arteta, I think last season or something had come out that Arteta hates switches of play, or he hates long balls from one side to the other. And I think his dislike for carrying the ball and his dislike for switching of play hinders some of our better players from doing what they do best. Rice, that's one of his key strengths, is being able to switch the ball from one point of attack to the other with long balls. And I also think we have some players that are really good at carrying the ball, and we just don't allow them to do that. And we should do it more. We should do it more. Let's see. Millen says, fact is we have spent 105 million on him. We could have bought the same profile for 40 million and spent the rest on a striker or forward. And we could have spent 65 million in a different way on Kai Havertz. I don't think Rice is the problem, to be honest. We could have literally just used 65 million differently. Lionheart says, Jess is always waffling. Then why are you here? If I'm always waffling, why are you here? If I'm always waffling, which would mean that you're here very often, why are you here? I don't understand. I don't watch shit when I don't like it. Jagoon says Rice over Bruno at DM. Rice is better DM than Bruno, but I think they'd work really well together. Let's see. Die Hard says 105 on Rice is why we can't spend the bag now. Just saying. Actually, having Partey in our team is the reason why we can't spend now. It's not about the amount. It's not about the money. It's about the wages. Any smart person knows that. Let me not go here because I really just feel like at this stage, I've said this so many times. I don't understand why people don't get it. It's the wages that actually keep us from being able to move on these bigger players. Had Partey had left, we would have bought a marquee midfielder this summer. Rice is not stopping us from getting another marquee midfielder. He's not. The wages are the problem. Because you can break down the payments. Arsenal pay multiple payments over years. None of that matters. It's not about the fee. It's about the wages. You have somebody that's on starting wages, you have to start them. Partey is a starter because of his wages. He's on 200 and something thousand pounds per week. We looked at it a couple of weeks ago. It's the wages. Yeah, you cannot just continuously give the wages without being able to pay people. Like, you have to actually have the space in the wage bill, and we don't have it. And that's mostly because Jesus and Partey require high level wages, starting wages. And so we can't move on the striker that you want because you'd have to give those wages to them, and you have to give those 200,000 pounds that Partey has to somebody like Bruno Guimaraes. So it is the wages. Rice is not stopping us from bringing in anybody. He's not. It's the wages. So we've been over that so many times. And it's, come on. The fact that we continuously discount the wages is not about the 100 million that we spent on Declan Rice. Yeah. Pixel says these players can cook under Tuchel. Who is Tuchel? Why are we getting Tuchel? Why you need a marquee midfielder after spending 150 on a midfielder the previous season? Because we still need a third midfielder to balance it out. And depending on how well Moreno does, we may not need it. But getting a marquee midfielder has never stopped anybody else from buying a marquee midfielder, has it? So you buy multiple marquee players throughout, like, it doesn't stop anybody from doing it. So what does that matter? Because really, you replaced Partey with Rice. You didn't replace Xhaka. So, yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's just weird. Sino Zarso says, where does this energy for Rice come from? Rice literally half of the season was the best player in the league, playing at 6. I mean, I told you where it comes from. You guys all know where it comes from. It's not hard to figure out where the source of Rice hate comes from. To me, it's like not even hard to figure out where Odegaard hate comes from. Like, it's all very simple. Arsenal fans are very basic. Most of their hate for a player comes from the fact that they like another player. When I saw people saying that they felt like they hated Partey because Partey was black and not the fact that he has a weird case, and that's probably the reason why people dislike Partey, is so hilarious to me. No one just likes Rice because he's white. Be fucking for real. I actually have people tell me that I don't like any of the black players in our team because I like Rice. Do you see how ridiculous some of our fan base is? It's not everybody, but a large chunk of you guys are not very smart people. Seriously. The main reason why a lot of people have turned their back on Partey is because he has a weird case that is still unsolved, by the way. And even if he was cleared of it, most people that are looked at for that particular type of weird case do not get convicted of it because of the way that the system is set up. So all I'm saying is, like, let's not be stupid here. Like, let's use our brains. Most of the reason why people don't like a certain player, it comes from the fact that their player is not playing and there's another player in there. Rice indirectly gets hate from a lot of our fan base because a lot of our fan base loves Partey. It's not that hard to see. Odegaard got a lot of hate because a lot of people loved Emile, and they thought Emile was going to be the number 10 or our most creative player, and they felt like Odegaard was blocking Emile. That it's just not, it's not that hard to figure out where some of it comes from. It's not all of it, but it's a lot of it. Arsenal fans are not good at hiding their tracks. Very obvious to find out, like, why, people don't like certain players. Martinelli fans picked up some sort of weird hate for Saka. It's not hard to figure it out. Like, come on now. So we don't have to hate any of our players or like whatever. My thing with Partey, mainly, besides his weird case, which I feel very justified in looking at him funny because of that, especially as a woman, by the way, is because he's always injured and he's never there when we need him to be, and I feel like that's a good enough reason to want to move on from him, So we do have these infighting. Like, I did see people panicking about Saka potentially not getting player of the month. We are so fucking like what is it? Like, everything we do is like very small. We fight about very like small bullshitty things when Saka not getting player of the month is not that deep, but people feel like if Saka doesn't get the individual accolades, he won't get the respect from rivals. But I'm here to tell you, he's never going to get the respect from rivals. So, yeah, we focus on very like stupid things. So yeah, Jerome says, to be honest, I don't care who plays as long as they are the best and on form. I don't get attached to players. I like Martinelli, but if he's playing bad, drop him. If he doesn't improve, sell him. Same with Gabriel Jesus. I think that's kind of how we should be, because the club is more important than the players, to be honest, or like our individual love for a player, I should say. And so I do think whoever's in form should be playing. I don't feel like anybody is without criticism either. So I don't think anybody has particularly started the season well except for Havertz and Saka and Raya. I think everybody else's levels need to go up a lot, if I'm honest. And I do think out of the midfielders, Partey has started off the best. I've said that before. So, yeah, I think if you're just honest about things, like, it's not that big of a deal. But I feel like there's a lot of dishonesty. Like, it's just so weird. Jacob says, talk football because women ain't exactly nice people either, especially when it comes to people and money they target. Listen, this is exactly it. As soon as you mention his weird case, people start saying that people just want him for his money. Yet, you guys, he had multiple women come out, and the only reason why he wasn't charged for one of them was because the rules changed for the location that he was in. I mean this because I want to stay, I like you guys and I love this community. I don't speak about this because people are not educated enough on it. And as men, I feel like people always think about, well, the woman has so much to gain. But when multiple women come out, it's more likely that you've probably done something. It wasn't one, it was multiple. So if you're not educated enough on it, I wouldn't speak on it at all. And I don't need to be careful because I actually know about this in particular thing, because Partey was one of my favorite players before this. And now I have a very hard time with him because you can't unknow certain things. So no, I'm not going to be careful. I'm very careful as it is, but to pretend like you don't know at the very least why a lot of Arsenal fans don't fuck with him, I do think is like very strange when we all know about this weird case, don't we? So, but like 99% of those types of weird cases don't get charged for it, not because people are innocent, but because of the way the system is set up. It's very hard to charge someone for it. But again, if you're not educated on it and you love the player so much that you don't care whether or not he does something illegal, then that's your journey, but we all know why a lot of Arsenal fans don't like him. So it's just weird to me, but beyond that, he's even if that was never the case and we had never known that, the guy can't stay fit worth a damn. So he's not really good to us if he's not on the pitch, So yeah, but that doesn't mean that he's not a good player, and I've always said that. I think he's a really top quality DM when he's fit. But if I always have to preface it when he's fit, then I feel like we've got to a place where we probably should move on from you. And that's with anybody. I keep the same energy. If I have to always preface everything with, but when you were fit, when he's fit, then he ain't fit enough. He's not fit enough, if that makes sense. So yeah. Blaze says, I agree with Jess. Some Arsenal fans don't like Partey because of his case. Partey destroyed his reputation. It's just one of those things where it's the elephant in the room all the time, and people pretend like they don't see it because they love the player so much. And I get why people like him so much. But even if you don't think that it's true, you have to sympathize with people that, because we don't know whether it's true or not, because it hasn't been solved. It's still an open case. It's not closed. So it's still there, and so people have the right to think whether it's true or not, because there's no, there's no outcome to it. So there you go. Winning Way says, it's crazy that everyone getting on Diddy, but didn't Cardi B say that she would drug men they fall asleep and rob them, but society says nothing about it? Yeah, I mean, women's wrongs also, should be accounted for. Like, I'm not saying women's wrongs shouldn't be accounted for, but whataboutism, again, like you, Winning Ways, you like whataboutism because anytime you bring up something, it's like, but what about so-and-so? Cardi B being a piece of shit, doesn't, and a criminal doesn't mean that Partey is not, or what he potentially did is not terrible. So, women's wrongs are also not great either and should be looked at. And, I'm not somebody that I feel like if you're a woman and you hit a man, you fucked up. You shouldn't be hitting anybody. Nobody should be hitting anybody. Like, I don't think women should get away with everything. But in this particular case, I think it's very strange how people act like that never happened. I know the club acts like it never happens, mostly I think for legal reasons. I think people forget Arsenal is a business. It's a massive corporation, and there's a certain way that you have to deal with things. That's when people were like, well, Arteta just shouldn't play him. I was like, you guys are just so stupid. You can't just not play him. That's not how things work. But I do feel like it is a dark cloud hanging over the club. And because the case is not closed, it will always be there. So yeah, Boy says, I don't even care about the Partey case anymore. He's not good enough as a player to stay at Arsenal. And Jerome says, bottom line, is there bad people in the, yeah, of course there are bad women and bad men. That's neither here nor there. When we're talking, it's like, Diehard says, I would say the accuser has destroyed his reputation. Let's see if he gets charged. Let's keep it football. It's hard to keep things football, though, because the interesting thing about just keep it football is anybody who says anything nice about Zinchenko, which to me, I've had this. This is why I think you did earlier. You said, I'm picking favorites and I just hate Zinchenko or something like that. I've actually been called like, I don't even want to say the word, but because I offered an explanation about why it would be strange for Zinchenko not to support certain people based on where he's from. And from a footballing perspective as well, I think Zinchenko is a good player that, you know, I think it's really sad how, like, all of a sudden, like, you know, everybody just hates him so much, you know. I do think it's like people are okay with that. They're okay with Zinchenko basically being enemy number one because of his political beliefs, but they're not okay with Partey being enemy number one because of an open case that he has for something that is diabolical, you know. So I think we only want to keep it football when it suits our agenda. But if that were the case, then people would be saying keep it football when it came to Zinchenko, which Arsenal fans are the first people to talk about wanting Zinchenko unalived because of his political abuse or political beliefs. But people don't feel that same way about Partey. So you can't actually keep politics or other things out of football because it doesn't work that way, you know. But for the sake of this video, I will stop talking about it. But you guys talk out of both sides of your mouths because people are very okay with Zinchenko being told to kill himself, to unalive because of his political beliefs. Nobody was stepping up for Zinchenko. No one was stepping up for Zinchenko, but people will step up for Partey. Blaze says, yeah, it's true. Some Arsenal started hating Zinchenko because of politics, which I understand. Like, human nature is something that I really understand well. I understand human nature. Human nature is you cannot separate from football if it's something that you personally feel affected by. You know, as you're not, most of you guys are not women, so most of you guys won't give a fuck if Partey did what he did or not. You wouldn't, because as long as he's a good player that can play for your football team and get you closer to where you want to go, you're okay with him playing. That's just the truth. And I know it because I know human nature. I know how people work. But, you know, based on your political views, you may not be able to overlook what Zinchenko said, you know. So I understand human nature and I try to understand all sides. But I do think it's always very like, well, let's keep it football. It's like, but, you know, you don't actually want to keep it football, do you? You know? So yeah. But all of our players in general, I think, you know, I do think have been victim of this one thing where if somebody is somebody that, if people want somebody else in that position, people will find a reason not to like the player that's in it, you know? So yeah. So yeah, and William, you literally cannot leave politics out of sport. I hate to break it to you, but you really can't. Politics in sport, it's just, there's just no way to leave it out. You know, in a perfect world, you can compartmentalize life, but you just can't, honey. You really can't. So yeah, but all in all, the ideal situation would be that we could all just focus on who's the best player to play in the position, but we're always going to have different opinions on that. So yeah, Richard says Havertz midfield. What have these people been watching? I'm with you, Jess. I think what it is they already know. I think they already know that that's what Arteta is going to choose. So they have to find the copium, but it's not that Havertz is terrible in midfield. It's just not a solution. It's barely passable, and it only was passable with Odegaard in midfield with him. Without Odegaard in midfield, Havertz by himself as our connector, because let's be real. If Partey and Jorginho are in that double pivot, what that's going to mean is that they're going to be locked in right in front of our back line. They're going to be sat right in front of our back line. We're going to be in a mid to deep block, you know. And so that extra midfielder, which will just be Havertz, cannot play second striker. They have to be involved. They have to be a connector. They have to be our bridge from defense to attack. They have to be involved. And Havertz, what is the main thing that we've said about him in midfield is that he's not involved. He doesn't create anything. He doesn't get on the ball. He doesn't midfield. And so for that one person to be the midfield that you require to connect you from defense to attack, I feel like is not the answer, even though he has been usable in midfield with Odegaard and Rice at times. He has been, it's not been the worst, but it definitely, I want to say every time that he's played in midfield without Odegaard, we've lost and we've been really poor in midfield. So I think you have to consider the fact that there will be no Odegaard when you consider Havertz in midfield. So you're going to actually need a midfielder in there. You're going to need 3 midfielders in there. You can't have one guy that's basically like a striker or a second striker in there. Havertz cannot just wall pass his way through against Spurs. That we're going to need a little bit more than that. And that's why I wanted somebody that could carry the ball, somebody that can be under pressure, because when you do pass it to that player, maybe at some points you're going to need to like win a foul or, things like that. Maybe it's a tough game for you to get out. You're going to need somebody that can help you with that. And I don't think that Havertz can, but maybe the game goes completely different, I really want Havertz to stay up front. I really do. Victor says Havertz in midfield seems like our strongest option available to us. Pixel says Havertz in midfield is a disaster waiting to happen. Shirley McKell, when can we demand silverware? Millen says, at present, Havertz is our best player. Let's be honest. He's one of them, that's for sure. Victor says, don't worry, guys. The fan consensus said we had an 8 out of 10 midfield, so we should be fine, right? I've been screaming about a midfield overhaul for so long, and I'm just not surprised that we're here to, Partey and Jorginho, plus Marino, Odegaard, and Rice is just not, and Winery is nowhere near good enough and enough. If everybody had stayed fit, maybe we would have gotten through, but no. Yeah, so Foxy says, bring Gilberto Silva back. He'll do a job for 60 minutes. Anybody. We just need a midfielder in midfield. Like, we sorely lack a player that can just do basic midfield shit when you don't have our starters, Millen says Jorginho and Partey will do fine. What do you guys think about that pivot, though? There's still 1,500 of you guys watching. That's why I'm still going. I just figure we can just still go. Like, it's fine. Like, because some of you guys are jumping in late. But what do you think about the pivot? Like, how do you think that that's going to work? Because there's no legs in that midfield, and that's why I think that they have to stay close to the back line, because we won't be able to play as high as we usually would, I think. So, I mean, they're both really good passers, but is there either one of them, could they play a little bit more advanced? Probably not. Who's going to take the onus to help create a little bit in that pivot? I think it has to be Jorginho. And Partey still stay deeper, but you can't get stretched with this midfield. Even with Rice in midfield, when we got stretched against multiple teams, like we looked very suspect, so I would imagine that this pivot means kind of like, do you guys remember how we played at home against City? Like that, where they were pretty much shielded the back line, and then we just tried to hit them on the counter, basically. And this is why I'm saying those other 4 positions are like gold dust to us, because that's going to be how we win the game. Them 4, if we don't get a set piece, have to be able to execute the counterattack well. And I just feel like, who do you trust which 4 players do you trust on a counterattack? You have Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, Trossard, Sterling, and Martinelli and Jesus. Is that all of them? Because we have all of our attackers available right now, right? So if you have to choose out of 4 players out of that group, I guess, Havertz, Saka, Sterling, Martinelli, Jesus, and Trossard. Who are you choosing? Who are going to be your best way of getting on the counter and actually putting the ball in the back of the net? Because that's all I'm thinking about is them 4 positions. Who do I think is going to execute that counterattack the best? Who's going to get us into that final third and actually score a goal? Right now, if I had to choose based on form, I would say you got to have Havertz, you got to have Saka, and you got to choose Sterling. You got to sit Jesus and Martinelli. And then I would play Waneri. Fuck it. Like, Millen says Jesus. You trust Jesus to hit that counterattack the best? Okay. Die Hard says midfield is Partey, Havertz, and Waneri. Actually, do I prefer this? I don't like the idea of Jorginho and Partey, but I feel like that's what we're going to go with. So I don't know. But yeah. Pixel says in phase 5, we were playing Jorginho and Havertz. Is Mikel Arteta taking the piss? I mean, that's what we have, you know. I actually don't hate Jorginho as much as other people. I just feel like he has to be your last option. I think he's 3rd in the pecking order of our 6s, which makes a lot of sense. And he should not be played as much as he played last season. But the fact that, but we needed 3 midfielders out to get to him. So I think we have to take that into consideration. But yeah, if Rice was not suspended, we wouldn't be having so many of these conversations. I think it would be so much easier if we play Rice and Partey, and you just know Arteta's going to play Havertz. Like, you just know he's going to play him in midfield. It's just happening. Lisaski Gunnar says, yep, Jacinho, play Waneri. It's time to unleash him. I'd play him. I'd play him. Fuck it. Play somebody we know is not good. It's not going to be a train wreck. You already know. Like, we've seen Havertz too many times in midfield to think that that's the option, you know? Victor says, Havertz, Saka, Sterling is the attack for you. Trossard, Partey, Waneri, midfield. Saliba, Gabriel, White, Timber, defense. What do we think? I love the attack. That's the attack I would go with. Trossard in midfield. I love Trossy, man. I do. I love him down. I love Trossard down. But that midfield is looking mighty small. It's looking small and it's looking frail. But there's some creativity in it. And then Saliba, Gabriel, the back line is fine. We know it's fine. So I like that. But I'm looking at that midfield like, yeah. Johnny says, for me, White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Calafiori. Hopefully Calafiori's back. I think he should be starting this game if he is fit. Partey, Timber, and Havertz. Interesting. Playing Timber in midfield. And then Sterling, Jesus, Saka, when I do not want Jesus. But I hear you. You really trust Jesus, so I know it because you used to talk about it all the time. So yeah, we got to consider in possession, out of possession, balance, and all that type of stuff. I feel like out of possession, Arteta is going to go with Havertz. But do we have to do Jorginho and Partey? What about Partey, Havertz, and Waneri? Is that too crazy? Because you guys is that too crazy? Is that doing too much? Is it doing too much? I don't know. Die Hard says Jesus would actually be very good at left 8. My only concern about Jesus at left 8 is that he tends to over dribble and lose the ball. I know people probably don't remember this because they only remember how it was called back, but I remember last season Jesus was really He came on and he was deep in midfield and he lost the ball, jinky. And that's how the Garnacho goal happened. It was called back. But my concern about Jesus is that he doesn't know when to pass the ball. He doesn't know when to keep it simple. And this is why instead of, I know that people said no to it at the beginning, but I would prefer, like, if we had to pull a forward to play midfield, it's Saka for me. If we had to pull any forward, it wouldn't be Trossard, it wouldn't be Havertz, and it wouldn't be Jesus. It would be Saka because he's the only one that you can rely upon in possession and out of possession. You can't rely upon any of them in both phases because some of them just don't know when to pass the ball. Saka almost every time makes the right decision. So if I had to pull any forward, it would be Saka. And I know it's like pulling your best player from their position. I wouldn't want to do that. But again, if we're talking about pulling forwards from the forward position, it has to be Saka. He's the only one you can rely upon both in and out of possession. Brian says the more time goes on, the more Havertz deal looks like a great signing. Him covering center midfield will be important this week. I mean, it looks like one because that's the option that we have, but we could have made other decisions. But Havertz, I would say that he's a good signing if he scores 20 goals this season or at least gets 30 goal involvements. So Johnny says Nwaneri is a big risk. I hope we won't ruin him in such a hard game away. I mean, but here's my thing. It's this whole idea. Where is this coming from? Where it's like, if you put Nwaneri in a big game and he doesn't play well, how is that ruining him? I guess I'm trying to understand where this huge fear has come from in playing young players in big matches when this is Arsenal. Like, that is literally like the fabric of who we are as a club, is bringing through young players and they play in big matches. Like, it's not too long ago where we had the likes of fucking Willock and Maitland-Niles and them playing in big games for us. And they weren't ruined even if they didn't play well. So I know Nwaneri is younger than them, but I'm concerned about where this narrative is coming from, that if you play a young player, first of all, the only option is that he doesn't play well and it ruins his career. But why there's never any like, well, what if he does well? You know, nobody is going to understand a North London derby more than Nwaneri. He's Hale End. Nobody is going to understand what a big opportunity this is than Nwaneri. Why can't it be the case that maybe he cooks instead of this idea that his career will end? If 17-year-olds are young players are the most able to rebound from bad moments anyway. They have the best goldfish memories. So if anything, I don't think it would ruin him. I think it could be a good thing for him. But I think that this is like this anxiety that we're building around bringing in young players and actually having to use them. You know, where's this idea coming from that if, let's say, first of all, how bad could it get? Let's say Nwaneri misses a sitter, or Nwaneri, let's say he gives away the ball and we concede a goal. That's experience that he can take into the next game, because at some stage you're going to have to use Ethan. And right now, he's not in any, like, he doesn't have any game experience with us at the top level for more than like 20 minutes. So the sooner you dunk him in, the better, I think. And then he can actually be a usable member of the squad. This whole perfect moment bullshit about we have to find the perfect low-level game where we're 6-0 up to put him in. I just feel like there is no perfect moment. This is Arsenal, sink or swim, you know, and this whole idea that a 17-year-old playing, when have we ever had a 17-year-old come in or a young player come in and they play a game and their career is ruined if they weren't perfect? Hector Bellerin, I think, played at a young age. Cesc Fabregas played at a young age. Fucking Saka and Martinelli both played at really young ages. Where are we getting this from? Where are we getting this? His career is ruined if he doesn't play well in the North London derby. What's that? I don't get it. Like, I'm trying to understand where this is coming from. Nobody, like, where is this coming from? I don't get it. So I'm just trying to understand it. Like, who made it up? Because I know some Arsenal fan made this up, and then people cottoned on to it to justify us playing nonsense. Because I remember when I suggested playing Rule Walters, at fullback and moving White into center back when Saliba got injured instead of playing holding. And everybody was acting like it was the end of the world. And I'm just like, well, the end of the world happened. Like with Holding, who's ass, by the way, and is not even training with Crystal Palace anymore. You know, what's the worst that could have happened? The worst happened anyway. You know, we were like, I don't know. So yeah, I'm just trying to understand first of all, where is the data point from this? Where's the example of a 17-year-old not playing well and it ruining their career? Where's this coming from? Like, because I don't see it. I don't understand. Winning Way says there are some big holes in our team. We are like on the edge of a cliff, our strong wind, and it's all over. Boy says it's from the idea that now we are challengers and we can't debut young players. That's interesting because I just don't feel like they're mutually exclusive. I don't feel like being title challengers means that you cannot have any young players in your team that you bring through and that they have to be built into like these very like low level games. I feel like most teams in the Premier League have had to use a kid due to injury or something like that. And most of the time they do fine and we don't hear about it being the end of the world. But, you know, I know this is Arsenal. So obviously if Nwaneri didn't play well, the media would talk, but the media is going to talk no matter what, you know? So if all it takes is for the media to say he had a bad game when he had one, then he's not strong enough to play at Arsenal anyway. You know, what are these kid gloves anyway? Like, it's weird. Like I'm wondering where this came from and why the opposite is never spoken about, where what if he actually does well and becomes a usable player in the squad? What if he's a Bob for us? What if he's a Rico Lewis for us? You know, that's much better than the Fabio Vieira, Emile Smith-Rowe that we've gotten in the last 2 seasons, is somebody that we can actually rely upon in the squad. So I think that, to me, that's bullshit. You know, idealistically, you wouldn't want his first game for Arsenal to be, you know, first start to be against Spurs, but sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. Like sometimes that's the situation that you're in. And I'm not seeing really an argument for this Havertz, Partey, Jorginho midfield being so successful anyway. It's not like that midfield is guaranteed to be so much better. Like quite literally, that midfield has so many cracks in it too that you can make an argument that having Nwaneri in one of those positions is a better option anyway. So yeah, I kind of understand what people are saying. Like I kind of do understand what people are saying in terms of like, you know, he may have a bad game, but the other side of the coin is never spoken about, that he could actually potentially play well for us and be a usable member of the squad, which is something that we haven't had in those attacking positions. If we're honest, we haven't had somebody that we felt like we could rely upon in those attacking positions in midfield. So yeah. Marie says Pep went to Chelsea with Rico Lewis and beat them. He came to Arsenal, or he came to the Emirates last season and started Rico Lewis against us when they had a little midfield crisis. They didn't have Rodri, and I don't think they had KDB either. And they started with Rico Lewis and Kovacic, and I want to say like Bernardo Silva or something like that. Like they had a weak midfield against us at home, and Rico Lewis was just fine, you know. So, and I'm not saying Nwaneri is Rico Lewis. I'm just saying that this whole idea that he cannot step on the pitch unless the settings are perfect, I think is weird. Boy says also some fans think that we will be blaming Nwaneri and other academy grads for results going bad. Shit happens. And here's the thing. That's a really good point that Boy is making, is that if Nwaneri has a bad game, I'll be less likely to be frustrated than watching Holding play like shit, you know, because Holding to me is very avoidable. You know, he's a player that should have been out of the squad for years. And we kept him in as some beacon of positivity because we just had to have him around. And then it came to the point where we had to use him. And then, yeah, I was more frustrated with that. I'll be more frustrated if like Gabriel doesn't play well, or Saliba, or one of these more experienced players. But if, when Harry has a bad game, he had a bad game. Like, where is this ruining his career coming from? Johnny says, Rico Lewis scored against us from a shady foul at the Emirates. No Martinelli winner if he does. He did score. I think it was like a fast restart and he scored that they called back or something like that. Rico, like, I'm not in this thing. I'm not trying to say he will just be just like Rico Lewis. I'm just saying you got rid of Fabio Vieira and Emil. You played him all through preseason for instead of Odegaard and also next to Odegaard. We have a midfield crisis. And if you don't use him and you choose to move your best center forward into that position instead, to me, it just reeks of lack of trust. And I feel like you have to trust players sometimes to get the best out of them. I feel like when players know you don't trust them and you're like forced to use them at a certain point and you don't empower them in ways, or that's when you get those inconsistent performances from players on the outside. I think it would be a good thing to start integrating Nwaneri in as soon as possible, because the way our season has started, we're going to need him. We're going to need him. And so better late than never. But, listen, you can run the Havertz midfield and you guys can copy him to death that it's fine, but it ain't fine. Theo says, 1, Rico Lewis is a right back, non-critical position. 2, he has way more minutes in the first team compared to Nwaneri. How do you think Rico Lewis got the first team minutes? Just asking a question. How do you think Rico Lewis got those first team minutes? He got them by playing. And Rico Lewis, I may be wrong, but I think he's a midfielder by trade. And they kind of Zinchenko'd him and made him into a fullback. But I could have sworn he played midfield against us, and he's played midfield before for Pep. So the right back non-critical position is kind of a non-starter. It's not really an argument. But he has way more first team minutes only speaks to the conversation that we're having, and actually makes my point even more, is that Rico Lewis is a good part of Manchester City's squad now because Pep trusted him with minutes. And every game for City is also important. They're title challengers. They're expected to win trophies. They're also in a position where they cannot drop points and that they need to be playing at a high level, but they've still found a way to introduce Rico Lewis and Foden into the team, 2 players that came from their academy. Bob, I think they bought from somewhere else and already had, like, he was already a little bit older, but none of this is really matters. He is older, okay, but he was 17 at some point. How old is Rico Lewis, by the way? So I get it, but again, that still doesn't answer my question about how is this going to ruin his career? How is his career going to end if he has a bad game against Tottenham? Because it doesn't. He's 19, by the way. So he's 2 years older than Ethan. So if you imagine that Rico Lewis has been in the City squad for 2 years, he had to get first team minutes when he was what age? I'll let you do the math. On that one. Millen says, look, Ethan has exhausted his first team minutes. We will see him next preseason. Daniel says, play Kai up front, play Trossard in the 10, Sterling on the left. That's my answer to Odegaard. Diallo says, people trying to rewrite history is so shameless. They're telling me that we shouldn't have sold ESR, Eddie, Vieira, Nelson. Miss me with that. I agree with Diallo 110% here. I think the fact that we already know that Arteta is going to use Havertz in midfield and that's going to be his answer is the exact reason why Fabio Vieira and ESR should have went. They were never going to be used in this game against Spurs, ever. They weren't. Arteta's answer has always been move Havertz to midfield. That's always been the answer. Even if that meant playing Eddie up front, it's always the answer. So they were never going to play. And so we were good for getting the money that we should have been getting for Eddie and ESR. Vieira needs to go out and get minutes. Like, he's never going to play. He was already shunted out to the wing again. This is somebody that he's 24 years old, and Arteta preferred Ethan to play in midfield during preseason than Vieira. He was never going to play him in midfield. Never going to play him in midfield. And then you have Nelson, who we know needed to go. So yeah, let's not revise history. Diallo says Jess sounds defeated. Our fan base is so pathetic. It's not even that. It's not even that. I am tired of this being match week 4 is very like, oh my gosh, like, it's annoying. But also, just like personally, my dog has been really sick, so I haven't been getting any sleep either. So I'm mostly defeated and deflated because of that. But, I still expect us to beat Spurs. Come the day when I do the watch along, I will expect us to beat Spurs. Like, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. I expect us to beat Spurs. I know that there's always going to be somebody that's like, well, we didn't have our first choice. I don't give a shit about having our first choice. Nothing at this stage. Like, I don't care about that. I meant it when I said, you made your bed, lie in it. You have to utilize your squad. You're not going to ever have, I think I said it a couple weeks ago, I'm never going to expect us to have our whole team back. Have you noticed that every time we have our whole team back, it only takes another week for somebody else to get an injury? That's football now. They play too many minutes. So we're never going to have our whole team. So we're always going to have injuries. So we're going to have to figure out ways to maneuver around this. There's going to be a period of time where our attack is light. There's going to be this period of time where our midfield is light. So the decisions that were made in the summer window will always come to the forefront, because it's like, okay, you should have expected us to have these moments. And I think Arsenal, the way that Arsenal operate in windows at times, for me, makes me think that they always think that the most positive thing is going to happen. Where as an Arsenal fan, because like we have terrible luck, I'm always thinking, well, the worst case scenario, if we're at the worst case scenario, what can I look forward to? Yeah, my worst case scenario midfield, I would hope, wouldn't be Havertz, Jorginho, and Partey, but here we are, so they have to use their squad. They just have to, and they need to beat spreads. Like, you just have to. I don't know what to tell you. But also, guys, I just wanted to remind you guys that, first of all, this is not Cannon Club, so let me change this. But these are all the watch-alongs that are coming up soon, just for you guys to make sure that you set your reminders. And also, I will put the link so that you guys can get to this homepage so that you guys can just RSVP for all of them. But we are doing, let's see, here is I put the link in the chat. Tottenham, Atalanta, a doubleheader, actually. Arsenal women are playing Manchester City a couple of hours before the men play Manchester City. So we're actually going to do a doubleheader where we'll do the women's game first and then roll into the men's game. So that should be fun, in theory. And then we'll do the Arsenal men's game against Leicester and then the women's game against Leicester. So these are all the watch-alongs that are already set and ready to go. So you guys can just click on the link that I put in the chat. It looks like, oh no, that's the wrong one. Hold on, guys. That's the wrong link. Don't mind that link. Don't mind that link. Hold on. But you guys can just use this link. And we can all, yeah, there we go. This is the link. So you guys could just copy and paste that. The code is Jessica. It's always Jessica, Jessica, my name. And that's how you will RSVP. Johnny says, women and Arsenal fixture. Arsenal is favorite is against City. an Arsenal fixture, Arsenal is favored against City. I mean, not necessarily. The tide is changing. It's City. You know what it reminds me of when City started taking our players at the beginning when they really started getting serious. Miedema being at Manchester City does not feel good. That being said, it should be a very competitive match, and we should be winning. But it will be tight. Manchester City have very good players. But that doubleheader, child, that's going to be a day. So make sure you guys sign up for that, because if you guys also watch Arsenal women, that should be a lot of fun watching both teams play. You guys know we're Champions League wedged in on that Thursday. So we're going to do that. And then, the Leicester City games, which is kind of a doubleheader, but on 2 separate days. So yeah, Boss says Arsenal need to trust or Arteta needs to trust the squad more. Winery inclusion will breed confidence throughout the squad. And I listen. Here's my other thing about and we'll get out of here soon. But the Winery conversation is that we've already tried all the other things. We've tried the safe older guy. We've tried, the imbalanced midfield that has more of the older players in it. Like, we've tried those things already. The one thing that we haven't tried is trusting our academy. And the last time that we did it was when we had Emil and Saka coming through. And look what that got us. I know we were in a different position, but we're not looking for Winery to lead us into the next generation of this club. We're just looking for another person in the team that we can rely upon in midfield. So it's a completely different question. I still don't believe that his whole career will end or will damage him psychologically if he has a bad game against Spurs. But I just would like to not try the same things over and over again and try something different and play midfielders in midfield. Midfielders in midfield. I feel the continuous putting players in positions that don't suit them and expecting good results. Havertz can do a job in midfield, but we know where he should be playing, So Foxy is a Dutch forward. She went City. Shocking. And Marie says Arsenal women versus City women is always a tight game, often won on the fine margins, no clear favorites. Exactly. It's going to be it's just, you could not have written the script any better that we're going to play City on the first day of the season after Miedema goes there. It was always going to happen. So yeah. Johnny says, oh my God, a 3-hour stream just must really love us. I do love you guys down. I love you guys down. You guys know I do. Even though we have our little tiffs, we're family, and that's just what happens. I love this community, and we don't always have to agree on everything. So yeah, and I just felt like this conversation, because of the panic over the last couple of days, deserved a longer stream, because I know that people wanted to talk through it. I don't think we're going to get wiped by Spurs. Like, I don't think that the midfield of Havertz, Partey, and Jorginho just means we're going to get ripped. I do think that we have to remember that even with our first choice midfield, we went there last season when they weren't in a good space, and we didn't dominate. So I also think that we have to keep that in mind, that as much as like Spurs are shit, they still have players that can hurt us, so again, first choice midfield, we went there and we didn't particularly dominate. We came out of there with a 3-2 win, but the narrative after the game was they were the better team, right? So I just think about, the difficulty that this match will present, and that, it might just be a game where the defense and the attack needs to carry the midfield a little bit. And, that's what big teams do. That's what elite teams do. Elite teams don't let injuries derail them, from getting the business done. Teams fighting for top 4 European places, yeah. But teams in title races winning big trophies, they persevere beyond this shit. So I expect us to persevere beyond this, yeah. Jagoon says we need a win, then the therapy will be complete. And that's it. One win in adversity can really because maybe they have questions, as a team. If you've ever played sports, at even a decent level, that even a team can psychologically have, it's not just the fans, like you could have questions about whether or not you can win a game without certain players. So I would imagine that obviously there are some confident players, but I wouldn't be surprised if looking around the locker room, the game against Spurs, you don't see Rice and you don't see Odegaard. You could be shook. You could be shook by that a little bit, going to playing in a North London derby. But a win can change all of that. If you know that you can win at Tottenham without your captain and your marquee midfielder, then what can't you do? So a win can be such a psychological boost for a team that I feel like needs to learn how to win without key players sooner rather than later in order to actually be in the place that we want to be. And so, after the Saliba injury, I do feel like they need to know what it feels like to persevere beyond big injuries to their key players. And so I think a win could go a long way going into that Champions League fixture and then going to the Etihad, because Odegaard rolled his shit and it looked nasty. Like, we have to hope for no ligament damage, but I would imagine that he's out for a couple of weeks. I'm not a doctor, but I'm just guessing, based on how bad that shit looked. Like, if you've ever rolled your ankle like that, woo, it feels like your life flashes before your eyes. Like, if you've ever rolled your ankle the way that Odegaard rolled his. Brian says, defense Calafiori left back, Timber left midfield along with Partey, and Waneri mid, Sterling left. I like that a little bit more. For fuck's sake, what does this mean? Big Dead Man, I don't want to know what that means. I don't want to know what that means. Is somebody else hurt? Because if so, I'm done. Oh, Ethan did something. This is Ethan? How cute. Oh my God, Fabio Vieira is injured. Wow. Interesting. Fabio Vieira is injured. And Sambi Lakanga. But isn't Lakanga back? Oh, this is his second injury. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I know it's under 19s that Waneri's playing, but he's looking good. I would play Waneri. Oh my, like Fabio Vieira and Sambi both getting injured is crazy. Whatever. But yeah, I would say that I like that a little bit more, I guess. I don't love the idea of Timber in midfield, but you got to do something different, don't you? At least Timber he's not going to get bumped off the ball that much. He is technically secure. He can carry the ball, and then you have Ethan in there. I don't know. That's crazy. That'd be a crazy midfield, but we ain't gonna get that. I don't know, Kenzo. Do you suck dick? Blocked. What a fucking loser. Shit. Robert said, Missed is Odegaard out for long? I don't know yet. We don't know. Sorry guys, I'm just not with the shits today at all. So if I know this is supposed to be a family show, but not today. Fuck that shit. Let's see. Christoph Baumgarter on Instagram story apologizing for his part in Odegaard's ankle injury suffered Hi, guys. I would like to sincerely apologize for Martin Odegaard. It was never my intention to injure a fantastic player. Wish him all the best, speedy recovery. Were y'all giving him death threats? Because why is he apologizing for this? He doesn't need to apologize for the injury. Shit happens. It's crazy. That's crazy that he apologized. He didn't need to apologize. He must have been getting death threats. People are saying our depth is not thin. I mean, it's not. Our depth is not thin at the back. It's not thin at the back, but you have less. It's not about, like we talked about, it's not about the numbers and who can metaphorically or whatever. Yeah, metaphorically, basically play in certain positions. It's that you don't have like quality solutions that work. At the back, we're fine. In that midfield, though, especially in them 8 positions and moving forward, that's where it becomes a little bit more like, what's going on? But yeah, you guys, I know it's supposed to be a family show, but that was just, some people are so fucking ridiculous, And I'm also somebody that, if you guys know me in my real life, not only would you never say that to my face, but I'm not one to play with. I will talk about everything under the sun. I'll talk about your mama. I don't play these games. So the internet has made it so that I don't act like my normal self, but really and truly, I be holding back. Blaze says Sambi was injured even before the summer when he came to Sevilla. That's awful. But again, these players that listen, the injuries are crazy, especially for players that don't play that often. But Sambi was injured quite a bit during his time at Luton too. So it may be the case that he is injury prone. So yeah. Legume says Jess not the one to be messing with. Not in real life, and not when I haven't got no sleep. Not when I haven't got any sleep. Not when I haven't gotten any sleep. But listen, we had a 3-hour stream, which I actually feel really good about. I think we went through everything. The panic, the solutions, the expectation on Sunday, more solutions, a little bit of real talk shit. I think we got through pretty much everything. Blocked a couple of hoes. We did a lot of stuff, so I enjoyed the stream. I enjoyed the streams where we're real about it. Honestly, these are the streams that when I leave them, I feel so good. When we do these streams, I feel so good. Seriously, because I never feel bad after I say exactly how I feel. I don't know about y'all, but when I feel like I'm not saying how I really feel about shit, I feel so bad after, but now I feel good. And I feel like you guys also got some stuff out too. And now we can roll on Sunday. As long as nobody else gets injured, famous last words, we're still going to have Saka. Gosh, I need to I need to make, I don't want to jinx this, but we'll still have all our forward options and we'll have all our defensive options. We'll just have to piecemeal the midfield. That's it. And start Winery, and all will be well, But therapy session, this was great. I'm gonna go get something to eat and relax for a little bit and find my dog, because literally I haven't heard Beckham in hours now, so he's probably in trouble now. But enjoy your day, you guys. Don't let this, hopefully you got it out, because in the end of the day, the result is going to be the result, and we can still go there and win, and we were never going to go through the entire season with our entire team. It's unfortunate to start off the season like this, but good teams will find a way without their main players. It's about those other players stepping up. And quite frankly, if they don't, we should ask questions of them, because they should be good enough to step up and get the job done. Right? So yeah, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Pray on Rice and Saka's knees and ankles and toes and elbows. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.